Hey guys. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Realized His Full Potential. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 4, Rookie No More. Minutes earlier, Surugaku vs. Gantetsu. Surugaku was down on one knee before Gantetsu, panting and blood streaming down his chin and temple. No matter what he did, no matter how many explosions he set off, his opponent Gantetsu would always come back with a vengeance. Healed by the minerals he pulled out of the earth, a loud bang went off in the distance. Sounds like Kiho took care of that brat with the pineapple hairstyle, Gantetsu sneered. Right about now Rosaria and Kagero are killing your swordsman and your pretty little kunoichi friend. As for Kajari-sama, well, that kid was lost cause from the get-go. There's no way Kajari-sama will spare him. How can you be so loyal to him after he nearly killed you? Surugaku spat some blood and struggled to get to his feet, his body completely battered and bruised from the onslaught of Gantetsu's punishing blows. He treats you like dirt. He saved my life a long time ago. It's his to do with what he wishes, Gantetsu replied firmly with nothing but the utmost of conviction in his words. He began to walk towards Surugaku, the earth crusted onto his skin growling lengthier, thicker and jagged as it gained volume. It's time to end this, Konoha dog. Now you'll know why Konoha would have lost the war if not for the Kuroi Senko. Poof! I have come to serve, Kajari-sama. Surugaku's eyes widened as a giant summon appeared, ripping through the walls of the warehouse that was summoned it. What in the world is that? Surugaku demanded with a shout. That thing is enormous. Who could have summoned it? Gantetsu barked an ominous laugh, stopping his stride momentarily. That is Kajari-sama's personal summon. He is the only one in the world to hold the summoning contract to its kin. Though I have no idea why Kajari-sama felt the need to summon it for weaklings such as you, Gantetsu began to approach Surugaku again. By now his rock fist had grown larger than Surugaku himself. Don't worry though, it'll be over for you soon. Surugaku closed his eyes as Gantetsu stopped before him and raised his giant club-like arm to smash him like an insect. I guess this is the end. Poof! GKI. What in the hell is that? Gantetsu's eyes widened just as Surugaku opened his. A giant toad had appeared to fight Kajari's summon, and he didn't seem to be happy about. That's Gamabunta-sama! Surugaku shouted. Gantetsu looked at him with bulging eyes, having heard of the legendary Toad Chief. It was in this moment Surugaku saw an opening, and as Gantetsu's eye trailed upwards to the giant toad, he reached into pouch and withdrew his final roll of explosive tags. Having pulled so many minerals to strengthen rock armor, Gantetsu was weighed down too much by his rock fist to react on time to Surugaku throwing the explosive tag roll at him, and making a hand seal as the explosives tags began to attach to him rapidly. There's no time for you to prepare your armor now, IWA scum! Surugaku shouted, and though he was only a few feet away, he detonated the explosive tags. Boom! The explosion sent Surugaku flying back and skidding over the floor with several burns and singes. But all these wounds went unregistered as he lied mere feet away from the bloody mess that was once Gantetsu. His rock armor had not been prepared for an explosion of that magnitude, and thus he paid the ultimate price for his arrogance. With one strained motion to look upwards, Surugaku saw Gamabunta fight it out with Kajari's summon. You've got to be fucking kidding me, Surugaku uttered in a strained voice before slipping into unconsciousness. Naruto vs. Kajari, GKI. Yo, Gamabunta-chan. How have you been, ouch? Naruto found himself face-planting on Gamabunta's enormous head courtesy from the Toad Chief's giant tongue bearing down upon him as the toad croaked in anger, causing Naruto further fall his gigantic frame. GKI. Don't you yo me, I was having dinner with my family when you decided to summon me without notice. You're either very stupid or very ballsy. Either way I'm gonna have to teach you a lesson. I didn't mean to. Naruto screamed in genuine fear, hanging from the toad's jacket. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to interrupt your family diner. It's just that this guy said some pretty inappropriate things about toads. What? Gamabunta demanded as he reached for his sword. He did he? What did he say, Gaki? He said toads suck since they're not matched for snakes, and he also said, liar! Kajari screamed at the top of his lungs. Gamabunta had now unsheathed his blade and held it a reverse guard. First you disrespect the most honorable kin of the toads, and now you call my summoner a liar? I've always wanted a snakeskin wallet, but it looks like I'll have to do with squirrel. I'm not a squirrel, you fat son of a bitch! Kajari's summon screamed at Gamabunta, prompting a thick vein to appear on the Toad Chief's enormous head. Fat? I'll show you fat, you rodent! Come here. Gamabunta began his onslaught by jumping high into the air. Naruto had almost fallen off if he hadn't attached himself by the means of chakra on instinct. Suetun, Teppadama no Jutsu, the water orb struck head-on, and Kajari's summon screamed in fury. My coat, look what you did to my coat, you fat bastard. Now everyone's going to think I smell. You stank long before I got here, squirrel. Gamabunta shot back, and to add insult to injury he added, your whole kind does. I may dash. I don't care. As the two giants battled it out, Naruto's sweat dropped as he wasn't so sure if the Toad Chief was fighting on his behalf anymore. Why couldn't it have been this easy when he was fighting Gaara and the Shikaku? Gamabunta only helped him back then because he saved his son. But now the Toad was fighting to prove the kinship of toads to be superior to those of the lemurs. Or squirrels. Naruto had no idea what Kajari had summoned. It kind of looked like both. Still, the lemur, or whatever it was, proved to be a worthy adversary as a minute later Gamabunta had to withdraw with a deep gash under his right eye. He's a swift bastard. Gamabunta blew a huge puff of smoke through his pipe. Kid, do you know any fire jutsu? A few, was Naruto's reply as Gamabunta charged at Kajari's summon again. Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto dispensed one kunai from his spring-set mechanism and threw it towards Kajari. Midair one kunai changed into a constant stream of 1,000 projectiles which Kajari for the most part deflected, though a few longed into his thighs and arms but the pain went unregistered. His summon on the other hand was not so lucky as hundreds of small projectiles dug into its skin, causing it to screech in pain. I'm gonna spit some oil, you just ignite it and watch 'em burn. Gamabunta jumped high into the air while Kajari's summon howled and formed his amphibian hands into a hand seal. His cheeks swell up. Ready, Gaki? Ready! Naruto went through a string of hand seals of his own. Eat it, you miserable squirrel bastard! Gamabunta spat out a massive volume of oil that came crashing down upon the lemur like a fountain. Now, Naruto, Katon! Ryuka no Jutsu, I may error. The only word that come to Naruto's mind that could begin to describe what happened next was inferno. As fire struck oil, it ignited and a giant stream of fire came bearing down up Kajari and his summon as though there was a tear in dimensions and hell was unleashed. Kajari's summon had no chance of defending itself against the inferno and caught aflame. The summon screamed and screeched in vain as it toppled over and lied still moments later, burned to death by the white-hot flames. Shit! Gamabunta swore loudly. Naruto didn't have to ask, he could see it himself all too clear. They had overdone it with the fire, and now it had swept the entire warehouse in a sea of flames spreading at an alarming rate. Gamabunta, can you set out the fire? Naruto had to shout to make his request sound clear. Not by myself, I can't, Gaki. I'm not a one-toed fire brigade. Right. Naruto went through another string of hand seals knowing this would put a drain on his chakra, but he didn't exactly have a choice. Thus he jumped off Gamabunta's head and slammed his palm down midair. Kuchios no Jutsu. Poof! With another giant pillar of smoke, an enormous bluish-green toad with a waistband and two swords sheathed on its back in a cross-shaped guard appeared next to Gamabunta. The toad appeared to be considerably younger and less battle-worn than Gamabunta, but seemed powerful nonetheless. Gamahiro! It's good you're here. Help me put out of the fire. Gamabunta took the skies followed by Gamahiro, ridden by Naruto. Right, boss. Midair, the two giant summoned toads swell up momentarily before they simultaneously spat gulf of water. Teppadama no Jutsu. The incredibly volume of water came raining down upon the blazing fires. The two toads continued to spit water orb after water orb until there was nothing but shallow fires and a large fog of steam left. Naruto sighed in relief as he could see the fire brigade in the distance pulling up with their portable water cannons to put out the remaining fires. Looks like they've got it from here. Naruto looked to Gamahiro and gave the toad thumbs up. Thanks, Gamahiro. You're a lifesaver. What, you forgot about me already, have you? Gamabunta grumbled. Don't mention it, Uzumaki-san. Glad to help. The toad gave what Naruto could only assume was a bow of the head. Gamabunta bristled with an irritable croak. Don't celebrate too soon. For all we know that squirrel bastard and his master will be on their feet again. Gamahiro promptly reached for the dual katana he had on his back and unsheathed them, much to Naruto's admiration. That is so cool. Naruto beamed at the toad. Yeah, and what about my blade? Gamabunta said with a scowl. You never compliment me on that, and let's not forget I dismembered a biju for you either, brat. You got any idea how dangerous that was, Gaki? Despite his booming voice, Gamabunta's complaints went unheard as Naruto fawned over Gamahiro as though he were a child with a shiny new toy. So what else can you do, Gamma Hero? Naruto asked the giant bluish-green toad. Erebit. I don't think this is the time, Uzumaki-san, Gamma Hero responded politely. Right, Naruto nodded sagely with his arms crossed. Of course you're right. We should check up on the others and those two bastards down there. Elsewhere, Ray and Hayes were having a hard time fighting against their two opponents as they battled it out on a rooftop nearby with the IWA Taijutsu specialist Kagero and the eccentric Vine Whip using Kunoichi Rosaria. I can't fucking believe it! Hayes darted to the left and retaliated with a slice of his dual swords to cut a vine meant to subdue him to ribbons. He wasn't lying, he really can summon toads, and Gamma Bunta no less. I knew he could, Ray responded, jumping over Kagero and back flipping a few times to distance herself from Kagero. Megan, Sanjushi. Ray smirked with satisfaction. They were wise to switch opponents. Initially Hayes and Ray had been fighting each other's opponents, but it soon came evident Rosaria's vines were useless against Hayes and Kagero's brute strength was nullified by Ray's genjutsu and medical experience. Yeah, right. Hayes scoffed and took a step back to begin moving his dual blade rhythmically to cast an optic illusion. Konoha-ryu, Sazanami Konoha. The attack sliced Rosario's vines to ribbons, causing her to snarl and rush over to Kagero just as Ray moved in with chakra scalpels to cut his tendons. Kai! Rosaria screamed. Damn it, Kagero, how can you fall for such weak genjutsu? I'll show you how it's done. Rosaria went through a string of hand seals and rose petals began to emerge from her sleeves at an alarming rate. Hisatsu Sakura Erasure. Ray's eyes narrowed and she instantly cancelled out the genjutsu. Kai! Hayes, on the other hand, was already caught, and was cutting away madly the rose petals, thinking they were the real deal. Hayes, they're not real, Ray swore, something she rarely did, and rushed over to cancel out the genjutsu on Hayes as actual gashes began to appear on his body. Kagero stamped his feet on the rooftop tiles and struck both his hands into the concrete, fingers sinking through the concrete like knives through butter. The silent brute began to grunt, and his face turned red as veins popped up down his face and arms. Warg, shit! Ray began to pull Hayes away with her, but he was already deep in the genjutsu and was swiping away at imaginary razor-sharp rose petals despite being on the ground. Damn it! Ray felt terror and desperation seep into her as Kagero heaved the enormous block of concrete above his head and Rosaria cackled. Kagemain no Jutsu, success. Relief splashed over Ray like a tsunami. Shikamaru! Lying next to Shikamaru was a nearly unconscious and badly wounded Surugaku. Their TL held gave thumbs up and slumped back into unconsciousness. Shikamaru's arms were held above his head just like Kagero. The Kagemain user turned to Rosaria, whose triumphant smirk had now all but disappeared. Shikamaru chuckled and cancelled his shadow possession jutsu, causing the block of concrete to instantly fall on Kagero's head and bury him into the rooftop concrete and crash down to the lower levels. That's two I took out, you can handle her. Shikamaru fell on his backside and sighed tiredly, picking his ear with his pinky. Kagero! Rosaria screamed. Ray capitalized on the enemy Kunoichi's distraction and was upon Rosaria in an instant, chakra scalpels activated. She made quick work of disabling the Vine Whip Kunoichi by slicing her tendons, effectively incapacitating her, and chopped her in the back of her neck, knocking her out. The other two? Hayes asked tiredly as he sat down next to Shikamaru. Dead, Shikamaru replied easily. I had to get out of there quick though. Fire spread out of nowhere, and then it started raining. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at the glances Ray and Hayes exchanged. I'm guessing Naruto had something to do with it. I can't believe he was telling the truth all along. Hayes helped himself to some energy-replenishing pills and got to his feet. Let's wrap this up, shall we? There might be some thugs around here thinking they can get away. You guys go ahead and do that. I'm gonna sit here with the Taicho. Shikamaru laid back on the rooftop with a drawn-out yawn. I'm beat. Neither Ray or Hayes could fault him considering he beat two of Kajari's lieutenants on his own. Alright, Ray took out a field kit of medical supplies from her bag and threw it to Shikamaru, who deftly caught it. Check up on Surugaku Taicho's wounds. They don't seem life-threatening, but I don't think he'll be in any condition to fight anytime soon. With Naruto stood on top of Gamahiro's head and slid down the amphibian's arm to the smoldering remains of Kajari and his summon. The silver demon of IWA was still alive, suffering several burns and screaming hysterically over the death of his companion. You killed him! And good riddance, Gamabunta added with a croak. Kajari swung his cane at Naruto. The heat of the fire had melted the skin on his hand to the cane, and it was rather disgusting. How? Kajari screamed and charged for Naruto, but the young Chunin simply sidestepped and tripped the cane-wielding shinobi to the ground. How I beat you? Naruto asked calmly, and Kajari gave the smallest of inclinations. That was easy. Naruto took a seat on a broken piece of concrete. You're weak, I'm not. That's why it was easy to beat you. That's all there is to it. Kajari snarled and rushed at him again, but Naruto back-flipped of his seat and retaliated with a square punch to the face, sending Kajari sprawling back over the floor and holding his face, muffling his screams of pain. You fight for yourself, I fight for something much greater, Naruto said coolly. You know, a while back I went to a little country called Nami no Kuni. I'm talking real tiny, not much bigger than this city even. Anyway, that's not what was interesting about. No, what was interesting was that I found out that for years they lived with the same situation the people of Tanzakagai do now. Naruto got up and slowly sauntered over, kicking Kajari in the side with enough strength to send him crashing into the remains of a wall back on dirt. I realized then and there would always be scum like you around. Parasites that live off the weak and defenseless. Even though they're weaklings themselves, Naruto added with eerie smile. Silence. You don't know what you're talking about, boy. Kajari got to his feet in an attempt to rush at the blonde, but Naruto intercepted him and caught him by the neck and slammed him over his shoulder, and crouched by him, his furious blue orbs piercing those of Kajari as he squeezed the man's windpipe. You're weak because your reason to fight is weak. Selfish? That's what you are, and that's why someone like you could never beat someone like me. I learned not so long ago that a man with a cause will always triumph over one without. Naruto pulled him up and cast Kajari aside as though he was nothing and reached for his tanto. I'm not some idealistic kid. Not anymore. I know the world is crazy and fucked up, but that doesn't change the fact I can do something about it. That doesn't change the fact I can kill you and at least save some people from harm. Kajari's eyes widened at the shining blade in Naruto's hand and swallowed thickly. And no. Not like this. Kajari scrambled to his feet but realized there was nowhere for him to go, and turned around with derangement in his eyes. Not to a child. Not to a boy. The absolute terror in Kajari's voice and eyes did nothing to perturb Naruto's resolve. Naruto was behind him in an instant, blood gushing through the air as Kajari slowly reached for his neck with both hands as blood spurted out of a deep slash in his throat. That's one less piece of shit on this earth, Naruto said coldly. And those were the last words Kajari heard as his body went through violent convulsions before finally coming to an end with one last kick of his feet. There was a moment of silence as Naruto looked at the man he had just killed. The silence was broken by Gamahiro. I should go now, Uzumaki-san. Summoning me and sustaining my presence, and as well as Gamabunta-sama's, must be incredibly taxing on your reserves, Gamahiro croaked. I'll take this creature with me. I'm sure we can find some uses for its remains. As cold-blooded as that sounded, Naruto knew toads were animals first and foremost, and this was only to be expected. Besides, they were cold-blooded anyway. Thanks, Gamahiro. Would you mind if I summon you again the next time I need you? You don't have the tendency to beat me up first before you help me. If ever need be, feel free to summon. I would consider it a great honor to be your familiar. Ribbit, the honor's all mine, Gamahiro-san. Gamahiro croaked cheerfully and extended his giant tongue to the remains of Kajari's summon and wrapped it around its paw. Until we meet again. Poof! Poof! With two giant pillars of smoke, Gamahiro and Kajari's summon disappeared. Naruto jumped onto Gamabunta mere seconds before Gamahiro disappeared. Is it alright with you if Gamahiro becomes my familiar, Gamabunta? Naruto sat down on the Toad Chief's head as they approached the burning remains of Kajari's summon. Suit yourself, kiddo. Gamabunta replied rather moodily. You sure you're okay? Naruto asked, to which the Toad Chief raspberried. Alrighty then, thanks for your help, big guy. Naruto slapped Gamabunta's giant leg, unable to reach any further. You sure showed that lemur, squirrel. Naruto turned to the source of the new voice. It was Ray. What are you doing here, Ray-chan? Ray punched him in the arm. Stop calling me that. She then turned to Gamabunta and bowed respectfully as most Konohanin would have done. Greetings, Gamabunta-sama. I apologize for striking your summoner. Whoosh! Gamabunta's giant tongue bore down on Naruto and struck him so hard, he left a body print on the dirt. I like you already, Gamabunta complimented. Do me a favor and look out for this idiot. He has a knack for getting in trouble. And for destroying things too, I might add, considering the damage he did to the forest the last time he summoned me. With your help, I might add. Naruto shot back, his voice muffled under the dirt. Ouch! Gamabunta struck again for good measure. I tell you what, kid, this girl looks a lot more capable than that pink-haired one you should ask her out. I'm right here. Ray's input went unnoticed. No way, she won't even let me call her Ray-chan. She'll probably kill me if I ask her out. Naruto struggled to get to his feet. And seriously, what is up with you? I'm your underling. You're not supposed to hit your underlings for no reason. Underling? Ray repeated, though again she went unnoticed as Naruto was busy running away from Gamabunta's vengeful tongue. Eventually Naruto ran out of steam and Gamabunta tongue flicked him through the remainders of 3 walls as punishment for his insolence. I've got to go, Gaki. My diner's getting cold. Next time call for Gamahiro. I'm the Toad Chief, not your familiar. Naruto smiled ominously with a temporary stroke of pure evil genius. Jiraiya called you his familiar, an undoubtedly cruel but not uncalled for move, Naruto thought. He had to get back at the hermit for throwing him down a ravine at some point, so why not now, with a perfect opportunity like this? The prankster in him commanded it. What? He did he? Well, I'll show that perverted hermit who's boss the next time he has the gall to summon me. Gamabunta exhaled a billow of smoke from his nostrils and grunted. Take care, Naruto. Poof! As the enormous pillar of smoke was blown away by the wind, Naruto groaned, holding his head. Stupid Gamabunta, always hitting me for no reason, Naruto grumbled. He did more damage than Kajari and his rodent sidekick combined. The sad part about it was that Naruto wasn't even exaggerating, the toad packed a tongue. Where are the others? Ray pointed a thumb over her shoulder. Hayes is with the police force, Shikamaru's tending to Surugaku's wounds. Naruto sniggered at this. Or sleeping, I don't know, he seemed rather tired. The other 4 are down and out, so catching their thugs is up to the police. Naruto shook his head. It doesn't have to be, he told her, making a hand seal. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds of pillars of smoke burst into existence as over 500 Naruto clones surrounded the area and immediately took off. That ought to do it. I don't think I'll ever get used to that, Ray commented, looking at the hundreds of clones taking off. Naruto shrugged. Sorry if Gamabunta made you uncomfortable with that comment about me asking you out, he means well. I think. Ray had the most subtle of blushes and decided to vent her embarrassment through sighing exasperatedly and crossing her arms over her chest. He has a point though, you tend to destroy things unnecessarily. What? Naruto couldn't believe it. I didn't destroy anything, that was all Gamabunta. He can't control his temper, and he tends to lash out violently. Not me. What about the restaurant from earlier? You can't blame all of that on Gantetsu. Shikamaru told me you detonated a bomb in there. Naruto opened his mouth and close again a few times. She had a point. Okay, fine, you got me there. But can you really blame me? That guy is huge, Ray corrected. Surugaku Taisho killed him. Right, he was huge, Naruto amended. Noticeable surprise Surugaku had pulled that one off. And for the record, it was a clone. Besides, desperate times make for desperate measure. The last time I used an exploding tag, never mind. You don't want to know what I did the last time I had an explosive tag. Naruto's mind wandered for a moment, and he knew any kind of friendship with the red demon of the sand would be impossible. Shaking his head, Naruto shuddered at the thought. You really don't want to know. I don't intend to pry on that matter, Ray said dryly. Still, my points stand. You completely destroyed an entire restaurant mere minutes after we got here. With help. This discussion went on for a while as the two made it back to the rest of their team. Eventually the subject shifted from Naruto's destructive tendencies to other subjects. There was one in particular Ray seemed rather interested in. How did you meet Jiraiya-sama? Ray asked a while later, coming to a standstill with their teammates close by. Obviously you must have impressed him for him to make you his pupil, right? Well, Naruto took a thoughtful pose as he thought back to the time he met Jiraiya. Oiroke no Jutsu. He shook his head vehemently, knowing he would lose what little respect he had gained if he told her that particular story. You don't want to know that either. He used to think the world of that particular jutsu. It was incredibly useful against perverts, but now he had matured a little. He knew it was incredibly humiliating for himself. Perhaps more so than for his victims. Oh, from the look of your face I think I do. Well, too bad, Ray-chan au. Ray swiftly punched him in the arm with an annoyed expression. Stop calling me that. Naruto rubbed the painful spot on with a frown. For a girl you sure pack a punch. You could seriously hurt someone with those. You want another? No, ma'am. Naruto shook his head dutifully. Just out of curiosity, why don't you like me calling you that? It's unprofessional, Ray responded coolly. Our professional involves killing people, Naruto deadpanned. She shrugged indifferently to the sentiment. And what's your point? I don't think I have one, Naruto responded sagely, as though imparting her with great knowledge and wisdom. Ray shook her head. You're an idiot. That night Hayes took point as acting team leader as Surugaku was being treated for his injuries at the Tanzaka hospital. When Naruto and Ray got back to the others, the last of the thugs were being rounded up and the fire brigade were putting out shallow fires around the warehouse. Journalists were on the scene taking statements of the police brass and several magistrate officials whom were quite content in forgetting they had all been working with and under a corrupt chief to usurp as much credit as possible. Naruto had half a mind to expose every single one of them for the truly despicable people they were. But a deal was a deal. In exchange for police assistance, none of them would be mentioned in their investigation report on Tanzaka police force, though Shikamaru had warned them they would be put under close scrutiny for the time being and any further act of corruption would be met with the harshest of punishments. Fortunately, these guys weren't nearly as arrogant as their former chief and they readily agreed to the conditions Shikamaru set them. Hayes gathered the remaining members of Team 312 as Surugaku was helped onto a stretcher and into a hospital carriage. We're going to be staying in an inn for the night. We set out first thing in the morning. What about Surugaku's wounds? Naruto raised the issue with little to no sympathy for their TL, but the question had to be asked. He looks like he just got him by a train, Hayes shrugged. According to Ray, he's fit to travel, so first thing tomorrow we're hauling his ass out of the hospital, and we're heading back to Konoha. I'll up his dosage for painkillers, Ray added. If we keep him sedated until we get back to Konoha, there should be no complications. Hayes nodded curtly and went to check up on Surugaku one more time. Naruto pulled Ray aside, much to her annoyance. What are you doing? Shut up, Naruto whispered, reaching into his pouch and withdrawing a scroll. You know how to use basic Fuinjutsu, right? Storing and withdrawing? Of course I do, I'm a medic. In here is Kajari's summoning scroll. I had a clone retrieve it. Ray looked at the scroll offered to her and then to Naruto with a suspicious look in her eyes. Why are you giving this to me? Well, for one, I sure as hell can't use it since I killed Kajari's summon, so there's no way its kin will fight for me. Naruto glanced at Hayes and Surugaku in the distance. Secondly, I don't want that bastard Surugaku claiming credit for bringing back a summoning scroll. So instead, I'd like you to have it. Why not Shikamaru? You two seem to be close, Ray asked. Naruto shook his head. I thought about it, but Shika would probably refuse since that means he'll have to actually train how to summon them. I don't know how to summon either, Ray told him in a whisper. Besides, I've already been put up on the list. What list? Naruto asked. Ray sighed exasperatedly, though Naruto could tell there was very little annoyance in her voice. You don't really know much about how things work in Konoha, do you? Naruto shrugged, prompting Ray to continue. If you think you're summoner material, you can apply for training, and if you pass they'll let you sign one of several summoning scrolls of Konoha. I'm still pending, but I... Just shut up and take it. Naruto reached behind her and dropped the scroll in her pouch. Ray pushed him back with a faint but visible red tinge on her cheeks. You should really know your boundaries, Uzumaki. And you should know when to be grateful, Ray-chan. The kunoichi gave him an annoyed look, but it didn't last. He could tell she was happy with the gift even if she tried to pretend otherwise. Look, if you still want to hand it in, go for it. They'll probably take you off the pending list and let you sign whichever contract you want if you do. Then why don't you hand it in? Ray reached for the pouch Naruto had put the scroll in, but he grabbed her wrist. I can summon toads, even if they don't seem to listen to me very often. Naruto's sweat dropped for a moment. Anyway, I don't need the credit either. You, on the other hand, are a medical shinobi and summons can be pretty damn useful, even the smaller ones. So take it. Hurry up, love birds. Hayes called from a distance. Ray quickly pulled back her hand and shot Hayes the coldest glare she could muster. Then turning to Naruto, she caved. Thank you. You're welcome, Naruto told her with a smile. This doesn't mean I owe you though, Ray added as they began to follow Hayes and Shikamaru. What? Naruto gave her an incredulous look. You owe me big time. That's a summoning scroll no one else has signed, I checked. You can't expect people to return the favor when you give them a gift. That's per upbringing. Naruto shrugged. I'm an orphan, so suck it. Oh. From Ray's expression he could tell she felt incredibly guilty for her last remark. Don't feel bad, I don't, Naruto lied. Come on, we should hurry up. Hayes is giving me thumbs up and that can't be right. A few days later, Naruto felt as though an enormous weight was lifted off his shoulders as he walked past Konoha's giant gates. Immediately, his stomach demanded Ichiraku ramen and Naruto would gladly comply. It had only been a few days, but already his body was suffering from withdrawal. It would also be a good opportunity to catch up with Tuchi and Iam as his last visits had been rather rushed. Shikamaru, to Ichiraku's, Naruto declared, pointing into the general direction Ichiraku's would be. Shikamaru sighed. Again? Why is it always Ichiraku's? Silence! Naruto commanded. Don't defend the ramen, they'll hear you. All the way from here? Shikamaru had a bemused look about him. The shadow user finally did concede, but with terms. Alright, but you're buying. Again? That's like the third time in a row, Naruto complained in a childlike whining tone. Come on, Shika, you're a Nara. Your clan's loaded. Why do I always have to pay for your meals, you greedy son of a bitch? If you keep picking the same place to eat, sure. Now you just make it sound like I'm offering to pay, Naruto complained. Which I'm not. He added pointedly. Shikamaru shrugged. Take it or leave it, Hayes chuckled at their exchange. Mind if I tag along? I'm starving. Me too, Ray chimed in. Naruto could already feel his wallet shrink. Fine, but next time you're paying, Shikamaru team. Hayes looked down to their unconscious team leader, still trapped on a cart they had appropriated in Tanzaku Gai, pulled by Naruto clones. We'll drop off Surugaku first, then we'll eat. Do people really take this long to get better? It's been 2 days already. Naruto looked to Shikamaru for an answer. The lazy genius shook his head, clearly bemused. We're not all like you, Naruto. Haven't you ever been sick? Ray asked. Naruto shook head like a simpleton, as though the concept of being sick didn't exist in his world. Nope, never. Why am I not surprised? Ray's voice dripped with sarcasm. You're a very sarcastic person, Ray, and you're very observant. Oh, well, thanks, Hay. A while later they were seated at Ichiraku's, listening to Hay's exaggerated and wholly false accounts of how he faced 2 lieutenants on his own, while bravely defending a defenseless Ray. Quite frankly, only Iam seemed impressed by his false tales of grandeurs, whilst his teammates stared at him with blank expressions. What happened next, Hayes-san? Iam was practically swooning over the counter now, much to Naruto's annoyance. Even more so, Hayes indulged her. Then this incredibly dangerous kunoichi used this crazy rose petal genjutsu. Hayes scoffed. Of course it had no effect on me, but Ray-chan here, Nakamura-san was, also, impervious to the genjutsu. Right, Nakamura-san? Iam's expression faltered with the anticlimactic storytelling. Then what happened? Naruto tuned out to Hayes' tales and opted to strike up a conversation with the 2 teammates he actually liked. Well, Shikamaru, considering you beat 2 and I took care of their boss, I think it's safe to say they can't pull seniority on us anymore. Chi! Ray scoffed at this. Strength isn't all that matters, Uzumaki. What if you had gotten injured? Without a medic Nin you would be done for. Luckily for you, that's when I step. Ray allowed herself a keen smirk of confidence, one Naruto found quite irksome. Right, you're even more troublesome when you hate, Naruto, Shikamaru pointed out between bites. Haters gonna hate. Naruto shrugged and dug in. They continued to talk some more as they ate, but Naruto grew annoyed with Hayes and his impure intentions with Iam. The looks and gesture and shameless flirting were getting to him, thus decided to put a stop to it. So Iam, how about you and I go out? Crack! With swift, precise movement, Naruto kicked a leg on Hayes' stool in a strategic area, breaking it and causing Hayes to fall backwards. Whoa! Hayes flapped his arms, but to no avail as he fell on his back. Alf! He grunted. It happened so fast Iam's civilian's eyes couldn't keep up. Hayes-san! Are you okay? Iam turned to walk around the counter, but Naruto held up his extended hand to Hayes, and who looked at him suspiciously. Naruto pulled Hayes up by the hand and applied some pressure to his grip, speaking so low only Hayes could hear. If I catch you hitting on her again like she's some random girl you can sleep with and never speak to again, I'll break your arms. Got it? Got it. Hayes swallowed thickly and pulled another stool. Naruto caught an approving nod from Tucci, who had noticed what happened, and mouthed, "Don't mention it," to the ramen chef as he brought him complimentary bowl. Come help me in the back, will you? Tucci took his daughter by the hand and went to the kitchen. His daughter cast one last lingering look but complied anyway. What's up with you? Hayes clenched and unclenched his hand a few times. Protective much, Uzumaki? I've known her since I was a kid, Naruto told him. In other words, she's off limits to you, got it? And if you think I was kidding, just wink at her and see what happens. Naruto's tone was casual, but nothing indicated his threats were empty. Ray smiled slightly, glad Hayes finally got put in his place for once. Let's just enjoy our meal. She changed the subject just in case Hayes got stupid enough to call Naruto on his threat. So, Hayes looked uneasy but pressed on anyway. How did you get Gamabunta to let you summon him, Naruto? Hell, how did you manage to summon the other one? Naruto slurped the last few of his noodles. Technically speaking, I'm not the boss of Gamabunta. Naruto paused pragmatically and hung his head as his sweat dropped, shame and humility settling in on his demeanor. He sees me as his subordinate. The Toads run their clan like a Yakuza and Gamabunta's the boss. When I turn 21, I need to share a drink with Gamabunta to officiate our bond for life. Hayes burst out laughing and even Ray and Shikamaru joined him. The tension air was instantly lifted with the hilarious revelation. It's not that funny, Naruto sighed. You got any idea how hard it's gonna be to find enough sake for him? We're talking at least 6 to 10 barrels here. For 1 cup, you can always water it down, Hayes suggested. He warned me about that, Naruto shivered. I'd still like to retain the use of my limbs for the time being, so no thanks. What about the other frog? Hayes asked. Naruto narrowed his eyes at him. Toad, Hayes. They're toads, and unless you want to get squashed to death the next time you see them, you'll remember that. Hayes chuckled, thinking he was joking, and Naruto continued. The other toad you saw was Gamahiro. He's one of Gamabunta's subordinates, and now he's my familiar. Shikamaru was impressed. So he'll fight on your behalf now? Naruto nodded and Shikamaru gave him an appreciative look. I should sign my clan's summoning contract. That'll make fighting considerably less troublesome. What animal does your clan have? Ray asked, now genuinely interested. Deer, Shikamaru replied. Naruto sniggered. Deer? They're better than amphibians, Toad boy, Shikamaru shot back. My clan tends deer and collects their antlers for medicinal uses, Shikamaru elaborated, to which Hayes and Ray nodded. Well, Ray and I aren't as lucky as you, so we've applied for summoning licenses. I'm hoping to sign Konoha's Hawk summon contract. What about you, Ray-chan? Naruto asked. Buzzards, she curtly replied. They're smaller but more agile. They'll probably take less chakra to summon than hawks, so that's another advantage. Especially for a medic, huh? You guys can't just squander your chakra. Naruto nodded in understanding. Like you would understand, Ray mocked. You have more chakra than all of us combined. I'd say it's not even human. Naruto shrugged and pushed himself off the counter. I'm calling it a day. We've got debriefing tomorrow, so I'll see you guys then. Later, Naruto, said Hayes jovially. A little too jovially. This prompted Naruto to turn around with a final death glare that foretold a world of pain, should the perverted swordsman make a move on Ayam. Remember, no fly zone, Hayes. Naruto stuffed his hands in his pockets and parted the high curtains as he left the ramen bar. He was halfway down the street when Ray caught up with him. Naruto. Naruto? He repeated, bemused. What happened to Uzumaki? He made a point of mimicking Ray's detached tone. What you want? Ray's eyebrow twitched, but she got on with it. This summoning scroll. Can you teach me how to summon ferrets? Oh, so that's what that creature was. A ferret. Naruto tapped his fist in his palm with a dawning expression, as though a light bulb had turned on above his head. I thought it was a lemur. So, can you teach me how to summon? Ray asked again. It was evident in her body language she wasn't too big on asking people for help, and Naruto picked up on it when he gave her the scroll. She was like him in that sense. Sure, I'll teach you how to summon ferrets. Right, ferrets. I'll teach you how to summon them, but you owe me. I don't run a charity here, Naruto said with a smirk. Ray smiled too. I wouldn't have it any other way, Uzumaki. Naruto? Ray shook her head slowly and Naruto kicked the dirt. Of course not. See you later, Ray-chan. Don't call me that. Her complaint fell on deaf ears as Naruto strode down the road back to his apartment. The following day, briefing room 1. Naruto and Shikamaru met up outside of the Hokage Tower the next morning, still somewhat tired, but they couldn't complain too much. With Surugaku out of commission, it was unlikely for them to be sent on missions outside of Konoha. Had a good night's sleep? Shikamaru asked as they entered the tall cylinder-shaped Hokage Tower. Naruto shrugged and stifled a yawn. What's with the small talk, Shika? He hadn't slept much at all actually, having stayed up late into the night reading up on Fuinjutsu and practicing lightning chakra applications with a handful of clones in his apartment. You look tired. So do you. I was just making conversation, Nara shrugged. Naruto wasn't buying it and he grinned knowingly and Shikamaru caught it, prompting him give in. I spoke to my old man last night. You want my help on summoning deer, don't you? Naruto interrupted. You're probably tired because for once you actually stayed up all night to practice, but you haven't gotten anywhere, have you? From Shikamaru's body language, he could tell he had hit the nail on the head as the lazy genius stuffed his hands in his pockets with a shrug and nodded. It's tougher than I thought, Shikamaru admitted with an begrudging tone. Why didn't you ask your old man for help? Naruto asked as they turned a corner past the reception. He said was too busy to teach me how to do it himself, but he let me sign the contract last night. He said not to worry about the tribute though, whatever that means. Naruto adopted a thoughtful look and rubbed his chin. I don't know about deer, but whenever I summon Gamabunta's kids they expect food, so whatever it is deer usually expect, you probably don't have to provide it since your dad is the holder of the contract, right? Naruto stretched his arms above his head, curving his neck slightly. Right, Shikamaru agreed. So will you teach me how to summon? Naruto furrowed his brows. I'm not exactly qualified to teach anyone, Shika. Ray asked me the same thing last night, and I told her I'd help, but I'm not sure if I'm the right person to talk to. Maybe you should wait till your dad's got the time to do it himself. Ray's got a summoning contract Shikamaru's genius caught on quick and he slowly nodded. The summoning contract Kajari had, you gave it to her. Why? Naruto shrugged. Why not? It's not like I could use it. Have you got any idea how much a summoning contract is worth? Why didn't you hand it over again? The shadow user's genius was lagging behind. I see, Surugaku. Correct, Naruto nodded as they turned another corner to the briefing hall. Shikamaru sighed. You could have handed it in yourself and gotten all the credit. That's not why I gave it to Ray though. Then why did you? Shikamaru raised a curious eyebrow, stuffing his hands in his pockets. You're not following in Haze's footsteps, are you? Naruto took affront to the comment. How dare you, he said in a mocking tone. Of course not. Chasing girls might be fun, but my chances with any girl here are pretty slim. I mean, considering my reputation, Naruto quickly added. He had gone and spoken without thinking and nearly said something he shouldn't have. Probably. Shikamaru massaged the back of his neck as they came to a stop in front of briefing room 1. A round of applause went by as Naruto and Shikamaru pushed through the door. Their peers of the Niji Shotai and a few others they hadn't seen before were standing and clapping. Some even whistled and made other celebratory noises. Congratulations, you two. Their platoon leader Kiza Enro approached them and placed a paw-like hand on their shoulders. You two have done great work since you joined the platoon. I'm sure before long we'll lose you to other departments, but for the time being you are rookies no more. You've earned these. Enro held up triangular pieces of white cloth with red circles in the middle, with Niji Shotai embroiled in gold-colored weave. Wear 'em with pride, boys. Enro patted his bicep to indicate a similar cloth of his own. I made 'em myself. All of the seasoned members in my platoon get one. Naruto was swept into a throng of his colleagues, all of whom wanted to shake his hand and pat him on the shoulder, and asked him about his latest mission as though he were some superhero. The cloth nearly slipped out of his fingers as Naruto felt a wave of humility, happiness, and euphoria and hundreds of other emotions he couldn't register wash over him. He had never been the center of attention like this. He had never been thought of as one of the formidable, dependable, respectable guys in the group. For the first time in his life, Naruto felt truly acknowledged. He felt as though he had achieved a lifelong dream, and in a sense, Naruto realized he had. There were probably no more than 40 shinobi in the briefing room, but Naruto felt as though he had just won over the entire village, and it felt great. Hell yeah! Naruto punched the air with the cloth still in his hand. His colleagues cheered and joined him in his chants whilst Shikamaru slid into the background with a content grin, leaning against a wall to tie the cloth around his thigh whilst Naruto recounted tales of his battle against Kajari. Haze here tells me you summoned Gamabunta, is that true? Asked Midori, a seasoned chunin Naruto knew to a member of Team 311. Several others nodded as well, wanted to know the answer to that question themselves. It's not as big of a deal as you think it is, Naruto shrugged modestly. It was childish, despicable even perhaps, but he enjoyed the praises he got for his modesty. Shikamaru here took out at least 2, isn't that right, Shikamaru? Leave me out of this, the lazy genius responded curtly, getting a round of boisterous laughter. Hey, Uzumaki, now that you took care of this hotshot IWA Nukenin, it doesn't sound so crazy anymore when people say you defeated Sabaka no Gara, said another chunin whom Naruto barely knew. Naruto frowned, he didn't exactly want to get into that right now. Not to misunderstand, Naruto was glad people were starting to believe him, but he didn't want to distract from the team effort he had experienced in Tanzaka-gai. Yeah, let's not talk about that. Come on. Why not? Shouted another. Enro cleared his throat loudly. Alright, that's enough. We still have work to do, so get back to your seats for briefing. Naruto exhaled deeply and took his seat next to Shikamaru with a grin, and a nod to Ray and Haze, who had also clearly gotten some of the credit, judging by their dispositions. So this is what acknowledgement feels like on a larger scale, Naruto thought. It usually took me so long to get acknowledged by just one person, but this is something else. Today is a good day for the Niji Shotai of Border Patrol, boys and girls, Kiza announced with a broad smile as he stood behind the lectern. This morning I was handed a large document on a new, international criminal organization known as Akatsuki. Kiza gave pause for comments. There were none. The Akatsuki are shrouded in mystery. We know very little of its origins, its leaders, or even their motives if. What we do know, however, is this. They are as big as it gets to criminal activity, and they've been around for quite some time. Kiza picked up a remote from the lectern and nodded to one of his assistants stand by the door, who closed it and turned off the lights as the second assistant in the back finished setting up a old and battered-looking carousel slide projector. The room went dark and Kiza began switching past slides with his remote. They are involved in everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything, people. Drugs, weapons, slave trade, contract killing, mercenary work, civil war, you name it, they're involved. How come this the first time we've heard of them if they're so big? Asked a Chunin sat a row behind Naruto. Please keep all questions to yourself until I say otherwise, Kiza frowned. But to answer your question, the reason why we haven't heard of the Akatsuki until now is due to their secrecy. The leading figures of Akatsuki have avoided detection for years through their highly secretive method. In truth, most of the criminal organizations we know of now are a part of Akatsuki one way or another. As crazy as it sounds, that's the truth. For years the Akatsuki have been silently taking over and subordinating criminal organizations all over the world. Up until recently, however, they've started to act more openly and have become a serious threat to our homeland, which is exactly why we have to deal with them. The slides moved to pictures of large freighters bearing in on others. Piracy, Kiza said simply. The Akatsuki has gotten so strong, they can effectively put a blockade on any given country on the coast. Our Marine Division took these photographs on the coast of Cha no Kuni. And as you can see in these slides, if you look closely at the ships, there's red clouds on the flags and on the sides of the ships. Correct, Kiza nodded. We believe red clouds are the symbol of the Akatsuki, a reference to the Red Dawn they speak of, by which we believe they mean a revolution, a new era that will be paid for in bloodshed. Though it is too early to tell, these Akatsuki may be more than simply an international criminal organization, and as you can see, we have limited information on the Akatsuki as they have only recently started to set up operations in Hai no Kuni. It is for this reason and this reason only our platoon has been pulled off the scouting rotation and is tasked with investigating their presence. At the end of this briefing, all of you will be given a dossier on all of our current information on the AKA. Rush sounds outside of the briefing room interrupted Kiza. Naruto didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a sense of dread as though something bad was about to happen. It was suddenly as if all briefings were put to a stop as doors were slammed, people started to argue loudly outside and a sense of panic spread. It wasn't until Naruto's slightly sensitive ears picked something up that he understood his clairvoyant sense of dread. Hokage-sama is down. What? That's impossible. Naruto stood up and began making his way to the door. By now everyone else had heard too. What the fuck is going on? Hokage-sama is down. One of the Chunin shouted as Naruto ran past him. He hadn't even noticed he was running. They all began to shout as every began talking at once, and even their platoon leader was in apparent shock as he didn't shout them down or notice Naruto running out of the room. Shikamaru called after him, but Naruto wasn't listening. Impossible, Naruto repeated the thought over and over in his mind like a mantra as he continued to run. The old man was fine the last time I saw him. There's no way he would just collapse, it has to be a stupid rumor or a misunderstanding. And yet Naruto continued to run as though his life depended on it. The reception to the Hokage Tower was packed with shinobi and councilmen, all of whom were loudly demanding to know where the Hokage was. Naruto pushed past them to reception and saw Izumo and Kotatsu shouting back at the crowd. Hokage-sama was taken to the hospital by his ANBU detail due to an asphyxiation attack. Kotatsu shouted over the loud demands. We don't know what caused it, nor do we know his current condition. Before you all decide to rush over to the hospital, the captain of his ANBU detail requested me to remind you that they will not allow any non-essential visits once the Hokage is stabilized. He also clarified the council will have to invoke Clause 4 and take over village proceedings until further notice. It must be his injuries from fighting Orochimaru. Let the council take over? They're the ones that caused this. They rushed him into getting back to work so soon before his injuries healed properly. What are you talking about? The council is not to blame for any of this. Of course you would say that. What's that supposed to mean, huh, bastard? The arguments fell on deaf ears. Everything did. Naruto felt as though he was walking underwater. He didn't hear anything. He could only feel his own gripping fear that the one person who had always loved him unconditionally was slipping away. The one man he respected more than anyone else, loved more than anyone else, was dying. Naruto turned around again and ran outside the Hokage tower and headed to the hospital. He didn't care if he would have to fight the entire ANBU department himself. He was going to see his grandfather before it was too late. Konoha Hospital. Naruto was breathing heavily by the time he arrived at the hospital. He leaned onto the counter with sweat running down the side of his head as he rasped between breaths. I need to see the Hokage immediately. The middle-aged receptionist shook her head. No visitors are authorized, she said coldly. It was a slap in the face compared to the warmth Naruto had felt when he earned his cloth less than an hour ago. What are you out of all people doing here anyway? Leave before I call security. Crack! Naruto's fist sunk 3 inches into the counter. Don't give me that fucking shit, lady! Naruto shouted at her, spitting the profanities with venom. Where are you keeping the Hokage? I need to see him now, like I said, filth. Naruto lunged over the counter and seized the receptionist by her robe and pulled her close with a snarl. Listen, bitch! I don't have time for your games. I need to see the old man. Tell me where he is or I'll force it out of you. Naruto had never threatened anyone like this, especially not a villager, but the situation was too grave for him to take the insults meekly. He was done with that the day he was promoted and he was determined to make the people respect them, and if that didn't work, they would fear him. Security! The receptionist screamed. She trashed oddly in his grip, somewhat resembling a hawk. Naruto momentarily lost it and swung back his hand, readying it to strike woman when he felt a sudden resistance. Naruto's eyes widened as he found himself staring into a white porcelain mask of an ANBU operative. Uzumaki Naruto, come with me. Naruto glared at the masked shinobi, pulling his hand back with a sudden jerk of his shoulder. Who are you? I am Rooster. You are here to see Hokage-sama, correct? The ANBU asked with monotone voice, to which Naruto nodded. Then simply come with me. Hokage-sama has authorized you to see him. Naruto paused for a moment and then nodded, to which the ANBU responded by placing a hand on his shoulder and instantly shining them away. Naruto's head spun momentarily, but he bit through the pain, refusing to show his disorientation, and followed the ANBU, matching his brisk pace down the closed-off section of the hospital. For the most part the entire floor was cast in shadows, but there was a bright light coming from the end of the hall, likely the Hokage's room. What happened? Naruto asked, feeling an eerie sense he was being watched by more than just one pair of eyes. I heard he had an asphyxiation attack in his office, that he was unable to breathe, and you had to rush him here for an emergency operation. Was it successful? It was indeed, replied Rooster shortly. Naruto wasn't assured. So, he'll be okay? Rooster gave no reply and stopped right in front of the room where 2 ANBU operators were stationed. Here we are. Naruto reached for the doorknob, his heart in his throat, and turned it as he pushed through and walking into a spacious room. Naruto's eyes immediately fell on the aged Hokage, hooked onto a respirator and several other large and complicated-looking machines. To his right were a doctor and a nurse. Strange, Naruto would have thought if he hadn't realized the frail old man must have gone through extensive surgery in which technology, not medical jutsu, was used. Naruto's eyes finally fell up on the tall, broad-shouldered and imposing figure of none other than Jiraiya. Rasengan. The perverted hermit for once didn't twitch at the nickname. What are you doing here? Naruto asked, approaching the foot of the bed. I was once his student, you know, Jiraiya reminded him, to which Naruto gave a small nod, fully understanding the Toad Sage now. Naruto forced himself to look away from the Hokage. He didn't like seeing him so weak, but it was hard not to look, even if he was strapped up to dozens of tubes and a respirator that covered his entire body. What happened? Naruto's tone was almost demanding. I was in briefing downstairs when I heard about it. Is he going to be okay? Jiraiya sighed and nodded to the doctor, who then gave a dry cough and read from his chart. Hokage-sama was admitted with a severe case of asphyxiation and liver failure. The surgery was a success and he's stabilized for the time being, but he may never be able to channel chakra again. What? Naruto hissed. You're telling me he'll have to step down? His injuries are quite serious, Uzumaki-san. Of course he knew who Naruto was. At his age, his body was already deteriorating to the point he could no longer make use of the large chakra reservoirs he once commanded in his youth. His body simply can't keep up with it, and he has slowly become less and less powerful, losing more and more chakra over the years through age and natural muscle degeneration. We refer to this condition as chakra degeneration. It is a quite simple but rare condition, as not many shinobi live to reach 70. What are you talking about? Naruto shouted at the man. The old man is the strongest shinobi in the village, the world even. How could be so strong if he's been suffering of this chakra degeneration crap you're talking about? Jiraiya walked over and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. The doctor knows what he's talking about, Naruto. Enma, the old man's personal summon, came by earlier and told me what happened during his fight with Orochimaru. Like I suspected, it was pitiful compared to what Sensei was capable of in his prime. Had it been a different situation, Naruto would have been shocked to find out summons could travel to the human world on their own accord. But unfortunately this was not a different situation. Oh, Orochimaru? That happened months ago. What are you saying it was the old man's injuries from the fight that caused this? Jiraiya said nothing, merely casting his gaze to the doctor. I thought you said he was here because of his chakra degeneration. The medical professional adjusted his glasses and shook his head. Not quite. The injuries Hokage-sama suffered in his battle with Orochimaru hadn't had proper time to heal due to Hokage-sama returning to work so soon. The biopsy results came back and we detected a string of highly toxic poison, most likely delivered through the puncture wounds in the Hokage's chest from a poisoned blade. We didn't catch it the first time around because, well, to be quite frank, it is an ingenious piece of work. The fuck did you just say, Doc? Naruto looked like was about to throw a punch at the doctor, but Jiraiya held him in his place with a firm grip on his shoulder. You might want to rephrase that, Jiraiya warned calmly, also looking none too pleased. Of course, my apologies. What I meant to say was that the poison, or virus really, developed over time like a leech. So far, our research has concluded that the virus feeds on the chakra and life energy of the host. A shinobi's body would be the perfect incubator due to its developed chakra pathways and reservoirs. Coupled with Hokage-sama's chakra degeneration, this virus will only deal more damage. The less chakra in the body, the faster it can break it down. Can you fix it? Jiraiya asked calmly. The doctor gave a long and pointedly pause. I am afraid not. This type of ailment may be slowed down by dialysis sessions and short-term remedies, but it is quite unlikely anything I have ever seen before. You may want to call in a medical ninja. Perhaps they are the better suited doctors for Hokage-sama's condition. No, Jiraiya said immediately. There's only one person that could possibly fix this. The doctor caught on immediately. Ah yes, but unfortunately she left the village quite a few years ago. What? Who are you two talking about? This wasn't a good time for Naruto to be out of the loop, if there ever was any time. Who are you talking about, Rasengan? This woman, she can heal the old man? Jiraiya rubbed his chin with a thoughtful expression and eyes fixated on the frail body of Sarutobi Hiruzen. Maybe, but if anyone can it's gotta to be her. I'm confident that she could save his life, Jiraiya nodded a few times. She cured countless poisons and viruses in her career. The problem is going to be to find her though. Naruto's eyes narrowed, he felt rather annoyed with Jiraiya. They knew the solution to their problem, why was he wasting time? Then what are we waiting for? He checked his pouch and nodded to himself, he still had all of his equipment sealed up. If you say she could help, then let's go find her. We can leave right now, we? Jiraiya appeared genuinely taken back by the determined look in Naruto's eyes and after a moment he sighed and then smiled. I wouldn't have had it any other way, kid, Jiraiya. Naruto's response died in his throat as they both looked to the door where an elderly man and woman stood side by side. Naruto could vaguely remember seeing them on occasion when he went to visit the old man back when he was still a kid. Jiraiya seemed to know who they were. Koharu, Hamura, still as impudent as ever, Koharu remarked snidely as they strode into the room. What is he doing here, Jiraiya? Hiruzen is in grave condition, he has no business here. Rooster brought him up, so he must have been authorized by the old man. Hard to believe he put you two on the list though, Jiraiya added with a subtle glare. What are you two doing here anyway? Come to pay your respects already? That joke is in poor taste, Jiraiya, rebuked Hamura in his gruff voice. We were once his teammates, and now we are his personal advisors. Of course we would be here. Jiraiya looked to the unconscious Hokage for a moment. Well, knock yourselves out. Naruto and I were just leaving. Ah, yes. You are about to embark on a search for Tsunade then? Hamura inferred. You heard that? My privacy seals must be getting sloppy, Jiraiya frowned. You can't stop me, he said after another moment of tense silence. What would make you think we would want to stop you? Koharu challenged with an audible disdain in her voice. We did not hear of your plans, but we had anticipated them. It so happens we want you to retrieve Tsunade. That would be in the best interest of the village. She looked to her partner, and he nodded to her reassuringly. And why's that? Naruto spoke up for the first time. Both elders looked upon him at once, disdain in their eyes. Isn't it obvious, Naruto? Jiraiya's tone grew cold as ice. They want us to bring Tsunade back so they can replace the old man with her. No way! Naruto shouted with an angry glare directed at the two advisors. You can't do that. That hat belongs to the old man. We can and we are, Hamura responded coolly. Know your place, Uzumaki, this does not concern a Chunin. Ideally, of course, he then added as he directed his gaze to Jiraiya, you would have been our candidate for the seat of Hokage, but, you know I'd tell you to shove it up your collective asses, you and whoever else supported you, Jiraiya finished without missing a beat. Well, good luck with getting Tsunade to accept the job because you'd have a much easier time convincing Orochimaru to take it. Jiraiya, Koharu said sternly. Naruto had to admire Jiraiya's guts. He was talking down to two of the most powerful people in High no Kuni without so much as batting an eyelash. Naruto wondered how Surugaku would have handled the situation. That almost brought a smile to his face. Almost. Fine, I'll ask her when I see her, but if she doesn't take the job, you will, Koharu interrupted coolly. I will? Jiraiya challenged aggressively. It was rather an odd sight for Naruto to see Jiraiya act like, well, him. And what gave you that bright idea, you old bat? Koharu smiled smugly with a knowing expression. Because you are your master's student, she said simply. You may have traveled for years and refused countless of summons, but when there's trouble home, you always come back running, Jiraiya. That is why you came back to warn Hiruzen of the invasion, and it is why you are here, by his side now. You wouldn't be able to live with yourself if you disappointed him, would you? Koharu glanced at her former teammate. In some ways, you are still the same needy little boy you were all those years ago. Naruto's breath hitched. He could feel the tension rise, and it was as if the room temperature fell far below zero. After what seemed an eternity, Jiraiya finally conceded. Fine. I'll try to convince her to take the job, as impossible as that may be. Good, Hamura said with a dry cough, reminding Naruto vaguely of an elderly Surugaku. I'll prepare a team of ANBU. That won't be necessary, Jiraiya cut off, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I'll be taking this brat with me. If we're going to do this, we're going to do this my way, Jiraiya. Koharu began. The Toad Sage didn't back down on this one though. Look, if you send a team of ANBU to retrieve Tsunade, you're just asking for trouble. The last time we spoke, she was pretty rusty, but she can still handle herself better than most. To be blunt, I don't think you can afford to have an entire ANBU team out of commission. An entire ANBU team? This Tsunade can't be that strong, can she? It was mind-boggling to even think of the possibility someone could be that strong. From the way they were talking, Naruto got the impression this Tsunade lady could take on even Jiraiya. Hey, Erosenin, this Tsunade lady is pretty strong then, huh? The strongest, Jiraiya affirmed. She was my teammate along with Orochimaru when we were the old man's students. Hamura sneered at Naruto's lack of knowledge. This is who you choose as a student? This is the fool you picked over all others we recommended to you to sign the Toad summoning contract? Jiraiya, I must say, you disappoint me. Jiraiya opened his mouth to say something, but Naruto beat him to it. Hey, old man. Old man? Hamura repeated incredulously. Do you have any idea who you are? You're fired. Jiraiya burst out laughing, and so did the doctor as Koharu and Hamura shared quizzical expressions. Excuse me? Koharu demanded. You're not excused, Naruto responded. A few years from now, if you haven't kicked the bucket by then, and I'm looking at you to go first, Granny, consider yourselves fired when I put on that Hokage hat, Naruto declared with cavalier bravado. Neither of you have faith in the old man, even though you're supposed to know him better than anyone else. When I'm the Hokage, I'm giving both of you the boot, and believe me, that won't take as long as you think. Before either of the flabbergasted advisors could respond, Jiraiya tugged Naruto along by his sleeve. Let's go, Naruto, we've got a long journey ahead of us, said the Toad Sage. Don't send anyone to follow us, you won't like what happens if you do. The doors slammed shut with a bang. That boy may be the spitting image of him, but he has her personality, said Hamura. Unfortunately, he is nowhere near as talented as his father. Hamura shook his head. I believe it is yet too early to tell, Koharu. He may very well surpass him one day, if his determination is anything to go by. Such nonsense does not become you, Hamura, Koharu snorted derisively, and then they too left the room. Chapter 5. The Search for Tsunade. High no Kuni countryside. Autumn was approaching later than usual in High no Kuni. It was that time of the year when the vistas were only just starting to adapt to the climate change, and the weather got noticeably chillier, and the sun was going down earlier than it did during the summer. Wind bellowed leaves past Naruto and Jiraiya as they walked down the dirt road in the countryside forestry for what seemed hours on end, embarked on a quest to retrieve none other than the legendary kunoichi, Senju Tsunade, granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage and quite possibly the only person in the world that could save Sarutobi Hiruzen. So where did you say we were going again? Naruto asked, detaching his canteen from his utility belt and taking a sip of refreshing water. They had been traveling for 11 days now, journeying from town to town, city to city, in search of Tsunade the Slug Sannin, said to be the greatest healer in the world. It was she, who Jiraiya believed to be the only capable of saving the Sandame's life. Just keep doing that exercise I showed you, Jiraiya told him, not particularly answering his question and chucking a water balloon over his shoulder. Naruto frowned, but deftly caught the water balloon in his free hand and gripped onto it. What kind of chakra control exercise is this anyway? I've been trying for days but the damn thing won't pop. Can't I just use clones to do it for me? It'd sure as hell cut down the time process. No, Jiraiya replied sternly as he had done so many times before when posed with the question. Now get cracking, we still got a long way ahead of us. You know, this isn't like anything I expected when you told me you were going to be teaching me stuff, Naruto complained as he channeled his chakra into the water balloon, willing it to burst. It was much harder than it sounded, popping a water balloon with chakra. And though Jiraiya had yet to tell him what this chakra exercise was for, Naruto persevered, intent on finding it out on his own. He had nothing but time to kill anyway, as they journeyed to their destinations on foot. My team is going to be pissed at me when I get back. I don't think they know what happened to me. Then again, why would they know? You said this was a secret A-ranked mission, didn't you? Naruto didn't know why retrieving a Hokage candidate wasn't an S-ranked mission. He seriously could have used the money and the distinction on his file. That would definitely piss off Surugaku. Jiraiya didn't respond and kept walking. Naruto would have liked nothing better than to pelt Jiraiya with the water balloon, but he had been given the impression this exercise was too important for him to wasting the balloons on such childish escapades, and so the young Jinchuriki continued to channel chakra through the balloon and tried to manipulate the water inside of the balloon to explode. Try spinning, Jiraiya suggested after a while. Spinning? Naruto repeated. All right. Naruto conceded after another moment of silence. He closed his eyes and drew a deep breath as he fine exercised as much possible control over his chakra as he channeled it into the balloon. Spin, spin. Spin, damn it! Naruto almost jumped as he felt the water spin in the water balloon rapidly. I did it, I'm doing it! Naruto hadn't expected to be this excited over achieving some progression, but he was. Now to up the chakra output. With a snapping sound the water balloon burst and Naruto's right hand felt wet. Hell yeah, it worked! He punched the air and Jiraiya shot him an approving smile over his shoulder. So what now, Erosenin? Just keep practicing. Jiraiya threw another water balloon over his shoulder. And stop calling me that, you're cramping my style. What style? Naruto mocked. Perving on girls less than half your age? Right, that style. Would it pain you so much to show a little respect? Jiraiya complained, hanging his head as they continued down the dirt road. You got any idea what people would give to be my apprentice? Seriously, you're the luckiest kid in Konoha to have me as your master. Naruto's eyes fell into a deadpan stare. Yeah, I'm sure everyone would just love being thrown down a ravine at random. That wasn't at random, Jiraiya said defensively. And in case you forgot, you can draw out the Kyuubi's chakra and summon toads now. Have you got any idea how tough it is to get a summoning contract, let alone one with the toads? Naruto rubbed his chin. You know, Shikamaru said the same thing when I gave away a summoning contract. Jiraiya face-planted mid-stride but quickly got to his feet. You gave away a summoning contract? Naruto nodded, to which the sage cried out in frustration. You've got to be kidding me. When Naruto shook his head, Jiraiya face-palmed. Just tell me, what animal contract was it, and how many people signed it? Ferrets, and just one person signed it. I took it off him after I killed him, Naruto said with a shrug. Why is this such a big deal anyway? Truth be told, Naruto couldn't care less for the summoning contract to ferrets. As far as he was concerned, they were stupid, good-for-nothing tube-shaped rats anyway. Besides, it put him in Ray's good books and that couldn't hurt, could it? If it were a summoning contract to something cool, like wolves or hawks, I'd keep it for myself. Jiraiya let out an exasperated sigh, his shoulders slumped and shaking his head repeatedly. Why did I pick this idiot to be my student? He whined out loud, to which Naruto bristled with indignation. Look, Naruto, Summoning contracts vary in rarity and value, but if you find one and there's an off chance you don't want to sign it or don't know what to do with it, just keep it for yourself. If not for the additional summons, do it for the cash. Unless you're swimming in real bills, I'd sell the contract or donate it to Konoha. You'd probably get some compensation for it if you did that, and it would look great on your record. And believe me when I say, if you want to be a somebody in our line of work, you had better have an impressive record. Naruto was starting to regret his act of altruism. So the ferret contract, do you think it would have been worth a lot of money if I kept it for myself? Naruto asked, almost not wanting to hear the answer. You bet, Jiraiya confirmed his fears. Ferrets may be small, but they're fast and make great messengers and spies. And if it was signed by only one person, phew. You could have made some big bucks of it, kiddo. Remember that the next time you happen to stumble on a summoning contract or anything else that looks like it might be of significant value, looking out for comrades is fine and all, but unless they can return the favor, don't be handing them jutsu when you sure as could use it yourself, and if not, the money. For the next 5 minutes Naruto slapped his forehead, muttering, stupid, 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 over and over like a mantra. Oh, how he had come to regret his decision to let Ray have the summoning contract. He could have used that money to pay his rent and buy some more equipment, maybe buy himself some other niceties like another cloak or trench coat similar to the one white one he was wearing now. Jiraiya had pretty much forced him to buy one on their way out of Konoha because of the chilly weather, and so Naruto forked out 4,000 ryo, too, for a white, short-sleeved trench coat and a beige cloak. Naruto had also been forced to put away his flak jacket and headband to avoid suspicion, and now wore a navy blue turtleneck. Don't sweat it too much, kid, at least you've now learned a valuable lesson, Jiraiya told him. Let's speed it up, we're almost at Otafikagai. It's not as big as Tanzakugai, but it's got a significant amount of casinos, so the old lady might be there. Naruto's sweat dropped. You know, there's something seriously wrong with powerful shinobi. All the strong ones I've met have some weird fetish or habit. I mean, you, Kakashi-sensei, and the old man are perverts. Orochimaru has some weird obsession with snakes, and Sasuke and this old lady Tsunade is a gambling addict. Then there was Zabuza and Haku. Zabuza was completely insane and Haku was a cross-dresser. And don't even get me started on Gaara, that guy is hands down the most disturbing person I've met. He almost makes Orochimaru look normal. We all have to cope somehow, Jiraiya shrugged indifferently. Some just don't cope as well as others and they go a little crazy. As for me, like many others in our profession, I cope with drinking and getting laid. Naruto was taken aback by his blunt response. Well, watch it, you're getting old too, you know. You don't want to break your hip or something, Naruto chuckled awkwardly. He wasn't too big on the topic of sex, especially not with someone as old as Jiraiya. I write too, you know. Jiraiya once again shrugged. And maybe you should try getting laid sometime, it's good for getting the edge off. I mean, if you go to the ANBU showers, they're usually... Right, Naruto interrupted before he learned some things he could never unlearn again. I'm just going to go ahead and forget you said that to me, a 13-year-old who isn't even allowed to legally drink yet. Jiraiya shrugged. Suit yourself. Days later, Otafikagai. Well, looks like that was another dead end, Naruto stated. They were on the outskirts of Otafikagai, heading into the direction of Tanzakugai, which Naruto hoped to be able to explore properly this time around. If there was one positive thing about this mission, aside from the fact he got to spend time with Jiraiya, learn new things and get a ranked mission pay for it, man, he had it good. It was that Naruto got to do a lot of sightseeing, something he hadn't been able to do previously on scout rotations, even though that usually took him all over the country. Jiraiya was holding a map of Hai no Kuni and a pen. Yep, the Sannin crossed of Otafikagai as he had done with 7 other cities Tsunade had been sighted at. My informants weren't wrong though. She was here, that completely wrecked bar was definitely her handiwork. She's probably headed to Tanzakugai, so we'll need to make sure to step on it before we miss her there too, Naruto groaned. I'm definitely going to apply for a summoning contract when we get back, he said to the older shinobi. Being able to fly from destination to destination beats the hell out of walking all the time. I'd run it by Gamabunta first, Jiraiya advised him with a serious expression. Even the legendary Jiraiya walked on eggshells around the Toad Chief. It was rather hilarious in one sense, and downright frightening in another. You don't want to upset the Toads, Naruto. They're one of the few summoning kin that don't divide in clans amongst themselves. If you piss off the Toads, you piss off all the Toads, and that is never good. Naruto was perplexed. Hold on, summons have their own clans? Of course they do, Jiraiya replied as though it was the most logical thing in the world. We have clans, don't we? We have different countries and villages. What makes you think summons are any different? It was a solid point he was making. Summons aren't that different from us, Naruto. We use them to fight, but they can use to help them too. Not too long ago there was a war amongst hawks that even got the toads involved, so Gamabunta took me to them to settle this dispute. Gamabunta did that? Of course he did. I'm the Toad Sage, Naruto, Jiraiya reminded him. Naruto still wasn't too sure on what that meant, as Jiraiya had often been referred to by the title, but it was never explained to him. Whatever that means, Naruto commented under his breath. Jiraiya heard him. It's part of my responsibility as Toad Sage to be involved in matters like that. Don't worry though, Jiraiya grinned in a way that made Naruto uncomfortable. One day soon I'll explain everything to you, my dear student, because when the time is right you will replace me and take over all of my duties, allowing me to finally return to the wonderful life of excessive drinking and copious amounts of sex. Hey! I never agreed to that. Should have read the fine print in the summoning scroll you signed, Gaki. Naruto did not realize this was a joke. What fine print? It was a few hours later, and they were still traveling on foot. They had caught up with a flock of travelers on the road, and one of them who recognized Jiraiya humbly requested they escort them to their destination. Coincidentally, they were also on their way to Tanzakugai. Can't thank you enough, said the gray-haired flock leader for the umpteenth time. These parts have been getting more and more dangerous over the last few months. Ronin and all kinds of scum now dwell these parts. The merchant sighed with a despondent shake of his head. Konoha Nin once kept these roads safe, but ever since the invasion, it seems they've had it tougher than we thought. The post guards that protected these roads were pulled away and the government hasn't responded to our calls for help. Jiraiya took a swing from the complimentary sake bottle they offered in return for their services. Bad times are coming for all of us, the Toad Sage told him. This may sound cruel, but Konoha serves as a military branch for our country's shinobi first and foremost. When it comes down to it, we're dedicated to more serious, pressing matters than securing roads. That is something the civilian authorities should be taking care of, not the shinobi. Of course, you're right, the merchant agreed with the despondent expression still on his face. You should continue lobbying for safe passage on these roads, though, Jiraiya advised, taking another swing from the bottle. Merchants make up a great deal of our economy, I believe. That we do, said the merchant, and with that he begged off as Jiraiya and Naruto dropped back further in the pack. I thought we were supposed to hurry up and find this old lady friend of yours. Naruto spoke at a tone so low only Jiraiya could hear him. He wasn't trying to be heartless, but he couldn't rid his mind of the image of Sarutobi on his deathbed. We need to find her before it's too late, Rasengan. Jiraiya's expression was ambiguous for a moment. Just keep practicing on water balloons, kid. Let me worry about the old man back home. The sage smiled reassuringly, though Naruto wasn't certain who Jiraiya was assuring. You're getting pretty good at popping those. Naruto frowned at Jiraiya. He still hadn't figured out what the point was of the exercise. What's that exercise for anyway? I keep asking you, but you always give me some cryptic bullshit. And you're damn right I'm getting good at popping those, Naruto added, retrieving a water balloon from his coat pocket and holding it up to Jiraiya. Just watch. Naruto channeled chakra through the orb and within seconds it burst open. See, you're right, Jiraiya agreed. It's almost child's play for you now, isn't it? Naruto nodded, prompting the sage to reach into his sleeveless red jacket pocket and withdraw a rubber ball, which he threw to Naruto in a bow. Here, play with that. Second part of the exercise. The goal is the same, but you'll have to use a different method to make it pop, Naruto groaned. You've got to be kidding me, right? Jiraiya merely shook his head and Naruto looked down to the rubber ball in his hand. Alright, this shouldn't take me too long. That's the spirit, Jiraiya said approvingly. This better be worth it, Naruto warned, frowning as he found it frustratingly impossible to channel his chakra into rubber ball. Or I'm going to be pissed at you big time. Oh, believe you me, it's well worth the trouble, kid. Well worth it. Jiraiya nodded a few times to make his point come across. They continued to travel with the flock of merchants for a while, albeit Naruto at a slower pace as he had to focus all of his efforts on destroying the rubber ball. Hours later, looks like they're stopping for a break, Jiraiya observed. That's fine by me. I could go for something to eat. How about you? The sage turned around only to realize Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Naruto? Jiraiya looked around and called out the blonde's name, getting a few stares and glances from the travelers, but he heard no reply from his student. You've got to be kidding me. Elsewhere, maybe I should just try and channel as much chakra as the damn thing can handle. No, that doesn't sound like a bright idea. Naruto shook his head and decided to take a break and stowed the rubber ball into his pocket. Hey Jiraiya. As Naruto looked up, he noticed with shock neither Jiraiya or any of the other travelers were around. What the fuck? Naruto opened and closed his eyes a few times and looked around. He soon deduced he must have wandered off or fallen behind whilst focusing all of his attention on completing the second stage of the exercise Jiraiya had set him. Damn it, Naruto swore. This was pretty damn embarrassing, even for him. And what was even worse, he had no idea where the hell he was or where Jiraiya was for that matter. You've got to be kidding, Naruto muttered as he set off into the direction he believed to be right. How did I even get lost? Man, this is embarrassing. Naruto wandered out aimlessly for a while before he lost his cool and punched a tree. Fuck me. Come on. He shouted so loudly a few birds nearby took to the skies in fear. Naruto took a few deep breaths and went over his options. He considered summoning Gamahiro for some help but decided against as it would have made him look like an idiot. Creating a legion of shadow clones to find Jiraiya seemed just as reckless and would probably attract unwanted attention if any. Finally, with a sigh of defeat, Naruto decided to keep walking until he either found or was found by Jiraiya. Walking on his own gave him some time to think on matters he usually didn't ponder on or didn't want to ponder on. Naturally, the Hokage was first and foremost on his mind, followed by the short ceremony in which he and Shikamaru were inducted as true, seasoned members of the Niji Shotai, and lastly about the summoning scroll he gave away, an action he regretted but an eye-opener on his carelessness, something he was determined to work on. Naruto also thought about his old team and peers. He wondered what they were doing, whether they had changed much over the past few weeks. He hadn't seen Sakura since before he embarked on the mission to Tanzakagai. Strangely enough though, he missed Shikamaru more than her or Sasuke. It was as if he had outgrown the bonds he once had with Team 7. It was rather disheartening in some ways, but strangely empowering at the same time. Naruto chuckled, thinking of all the times he had competed with Sasuke for Sakura's affections and Kakashi's approval, though he always knew Sasuke had both from day one. Then Naruto remembered the words he had said to the last of the Uchiha the day after his promotion. I'll see you at the top. And for a moment Naruto wondered what the top meant, leaving him to wonder out loud. I wonder what that bastard's up to. Undisclosed location. In a dark cavern several hundred miles from Hino Kuni's capital, there were 9 spectral figures standing in a circle, all of them with their hands in the ram hand seal. These 9 spectral figures were mere representations of their original bodies. Flickering, rainbow-colored silhouettes as they stood in silence. All of you are here, said a cold voice, calculative and measured voice of the silhouette situated somewhat higher than the others. Good, then this meeting can finally begin. About fucking time, don't you think, Deidara? Said another spectral figure with a pointed glance at another on the side of the ring. We had to wait 3 fucking hours for you 2 shitheads. It's not my fault Sasori no Dana is so slow, Deidara responded, to which Sasori did not even bother to reply. You two are always fucking late. Be quiet, Haiden, ordered the figure next to Haiden. He was by far the tallest of the group, and his deep voice had a tone of menace to it. Haiden made a scoffing noise. Fuck you, Kakuzu, you bastard. Once we're done with this meeting, I'll fucking kill you. Enough of this nonsense, spoke the voice from before. We have important matters to discuss. Will you be able to keep your silence until it is over, Haiden? The cold, calculative, and measured voice had a threatening edge to it, and Haiden fell silent immediately. Yes, Leader-sama, he replied after a pregnant pause, attempting to ignore Deidara's obnoxious sniggering. Pain paused for a moment until the cavern fell entirely still, and then he spoke in his cold, calculative, and measured voice. Konoha has begun to notice our operations in Hino Kuni, according to Sasori's spy network. I trust this information to be accurate. That is why from now on we must make sure we are particularly careful when we are in Hino Kuni. In the past we had been able to rely on the secrecy of the shinobi villages to keep their dealings with us hidden. Unfortunately that time has come to an end. They know of our presence. We no longer have the luxury of moving freely. Chi. So, this means we'll have to slow down our plans. That's going to cost us more, Leader-sama, Kakuzu replied with clear irritation in his voice at the thought of spending unnecessary funds. You appointed me as the treasurer, so I believe I should inform you our funds are running low after building the bases in Shimo no Kuni and Cha no Kuni. Then there's the blockade on Cha no Kuni. It's costing us more than predicted. I am well aware, Kakuzu Pain replied. That is why I had Zetsu track down several high bounties and mission contracts. We will leave the Jinchuriki be for the time being. We are in no position to challenge the Great Five for the time being. What? Deidara burst out. We're so close to snatching the Yambi and you're going to make us back off now. Is that going to be a problem? Pain challenged. Deidara growled and reluctantly backed down. No, Leader-sama. Pain nodded and cast a panning gaze over the 8 other spectral figures, resting his purple and ripple-patterned eyes on spectral figures. One was nearly as tall as Kakuzu and carried a large weapon on his back, and the other's eyes were set in the fully matured Uchiha sight. Itachi Kisame. You will need to back off from the Kyuubi for the time being. This goes for all of you. The Biju will be collected at a later date. Is that understood? Yes, Leader-sama, replied the shorter of the two, to which his tall companion nodded. Pain then shifted his gaze back to the tallest of the 9. Kakuzu, have your men dissolved the blockade on Cha no Kuni? The surrounding nations are becoming restless and are rallying together in fear. Mizu's daimyo, related to Cha no Kuni's royal house by blood, has now promised a navy to be upon their shores by the end of this week. It has become abundantly clear this entire operation is more troublesome than it is profitable. Where shall I move the fleet? That is up to your discretion, Pain answered. Then shifting his gaze to the oddest shaped of silhouettes, Pain said, Zetsu, any news of Orochimaru? It is imperative that we retrieve the ring he took with him. He's quite difficult to track, Leader-sama, Zetsu reported. The last time we saw him, we managed to deal some damage, but he got away, added a second voice, emanating from the same source. Will you have us try again, Leader-sama? We are quite confident we will not fail this time. White Zetsu's counterpart sniggered ominously. One of our spies in his camp has reported he is on his way to recruit his former teammate, Tsunade of Sanin. Clearly our latest encounter with him has put him on edge, and he's trying to make as many allies as he can. This piece of information had its clear effect on the others, even the ever-so-composed Sasori and Itachi. If she joins him, it will be far more difficult to take out the snake, Sasori said in a smooth voice, as calculative as Pain's. Even at her age and years of inactivity she can prove to be a troublesome opponent. That old lady? I heard she hasn't fought in nearly 10 years. How can you still fear her, Sasori? Goaded Kisame. Even in the poorly lit cavern his shark teeth gleamed visibly in relish, causing Sasori to bristle. If you want, Itachi and I can retrieve the ring, Leader-sama. We are in Hai no Kuni right now. It shouldn't take us too long to find them. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Kisame, Pain acknowledged, but you are highly unwise in underestimating the Tsunade of Sanin. We shall find another way to retrieve the ring. Time is still on our side. Until then, keep yourselves occupied with your new assignments. Zetsu will come see all of you individually. Yes, Leader-sama. Understood. Got it on. Pain's spectral form nodded. Now then, this meeting is adjourned. BZZZZYT. With that the spectral form of Leader disappeared and the others followed suit. With Naruto, a shrill scream in the distance alerted the blonde as he snapped out of his thoughtful daze and immediately looked to the direction where the sound had come from. I better check that out, Naruto decided, and he took to the trees, jumping from branch to branch with haste. The scream had sounded feminine and Naruto remembered, with a cold feeling in his gut, Ronin and all kinds of scum had been wandering around these parts. He didn't want to think of what could happen if a woman decided to travel here on her own. With that disturbing thought on his mind, Naruto sped up and, as he had expected, stumbled upon a revolting sight. A woman, kicking and screaming, was pinned down to the floor by several men, one of whom was tying her hands together as another tore at her clothes. Naruto launched a kunai with a swiping motion of his hand and the projectile lodged into the rope-tying bandit's skull, killing him instantly. His comrades were startled and slow. Naruto would have taken them out in their moment of confusion had it not been for their bowman, who was clearly the most competent, as he shot an arrow at Naruto on reflex. Naruto jumped from tree to tree to get a good fix, but the bowman was incredibly fast and accurate. Then, Naruto appeared to be struck. He fell backwards out of the branch, clutching his shoulder as though he was injured, but in reality it had been a feint as he substituted himself with a fallen branch nearby. Naruto appeared behind a brush, going through a string of hand seals which ended in the serpent a split second before he slammed both hands on the ground beneath his feet. Doton, Doria Taiga! The earth beneath his feet instantly grew moist and rose as it formed into a mudslide wave directed at the bowman, whose loss of balance made him fire his next arrow unintentionally, which ended up lodged into another Ronin's throat, who slumped down a tree as he gagged and gurgled shortly as the bowman drowned in the mud. There were only a handful of Ronin left, and Naruto redirected his earth flow river to tackle them to ground, suffocating them with a suffocating coat of inescapable mud. With grim satisfaction he rose to his full height. He had to give it to the old man. This jutsu was definitely worth the trouble to learn, even though it took quite a bit longer than the rest of the jutsu Naruto had recently acquired. Shifting his gaze to the Ronin's would-be victim, he saw her crying silently and sobbing hysterically. "Are you alright?" Naruto asked with a gentle tone. Fortunately for her, he had saved her from an horrible experience, but now he had no inclination on how to deal with the situation. "Hey, lady," finally she spoke through her sobbing and weeping. "Go away, PL please. Thank you for helping me be, but PL please just leave me be." "Yeah, that's not going to happen." Naruto almost immediately chastised himself mentally for his done as a look of fear struck the woman. "Look, you're clearly injured and it's not safe here for you," he quickly elaborated. "Why don't you just come with me? I have friends with me in this forest, though I seem to have lost them at the moment." Naruto unhooked his canteen from his utility belt and knelt down by the woman, noticing her tense up immediately as he did so. "Here, drink some water. I'd offer you some food, but I don't have anything other than rationing bars on me." Naruto allowed her to empty his canteen whilst he fished out some rationing bars. One was dried meat and the other more of a high-energy granola bar. She took them anyway, and attacked both at the same time. It was as if she hadn't had any sustenance in days. "So, do you want to tell me what happened here?" He made eye contact with the woman and suddenly felt like he shouldn't have as he saw her dark blue pupils widen in shock on battered and bruised face. "You're a boy?" she asked as though she had expected a different answer when Naruto nodded. "Oh, right, well you seem pretty banged up so I'll have to carry you. Is that going to be a problem?" Naruto felt like a bastard for thinking it, but this lady was starting to become a pain in the ass. He didn't exactly regret saving her, no he would have that a million times over, but it was his stupid need to save people that was getting him sidetracked. Why was that? He so often tried to figure out. No one sure as hell tried save him, aside from the Hokage, and everyone else who came to be his friend did so only after months and months of Naruto trying to gain their friendship. Those endeavors usually ended up in him getting hurt with little to no acknowledgement at all. No, Naruto would have to go through extreme lengths to gain the respect of those around him. And then Naruto stopped thinking altogether, though only for a moment. When did I start to think like that? Naruto was now fully aware of the nature of his thoughts. One mission with Jiraiya and I'm starting to regret everything I've done for the people around me. Man, that guy must be a cynic at heart. Naruto blinked a couple times. He realized he must have been scaring the lady with his silence. "Are you alright?" she asked. Naruto nodded reassuringly. "Yeah, just let me take care of something real quick." Naruto rose to his feet and formed a Kage Bunshin. "Go collect those weapons, they might be worth something," he instructed out loud for the benefit of the woman, who seemed understandably terrified. Jiraiya had made a good point before, thus Naruto saw no reason why he should leave perfectly good weapons lying about when he could sell them and make a profit off them. "Don't be afraid, it's just a stupid clone," Naruto told her. His clone jerked and shot him an evil look but didn't respond for the sake of the woman. "Shina, that's your name?" Naruto asked, to which she nodded. "That's a nice name, Shina-chan." "My name is Naruto. Do you want to tell me what happened here?" "I don't want to talk about it," Shina replied, her voice noticeably steadier. "Can we go to your friends now, or wherever it is you want to take me? I just want to get out of here." She cast a glance to the muddy corpses of Ronin that had tried to rape her. "Please?" Naruto nodded as his clone walked over to him with the sealing scroll and dispelled itself once Naruto put it away. "Hop on." Naruto crouched in front of the woman and waited patiently as she hesitantly climbed on his back. "You're heavier than you look," he lied. Shina made a shrill sound of indignation. That's a rude thing to say. It's poor upbringing to say things like that about a lady you know. I'm an orphan, sue me." Naruto shot back as he started to walk into the direction he felt was right. As they walked, Naruto had a faint smile on his face. Getting her worked up would distract her from thinking of what had nearly been done to her. "Seriously, you weigh like a ton of bricks, Hey." Hours later, Shina had fallen asleep by the time Naruto had managed to track down Jiraiya and the traveling flock. "Thanks for walking out on me," Naruto shouted from the distance as he approached, understandably getting some strange and questioning glances with Shina on his back. Jiraiya waited for him to come closer and then bonked him lightly on the head. "You're an idiot. I take my eyes of you for 1 second and I lose you for a good 3 hours. You seriously need to work on your tracking skills. It couldn't have taken you this long to find us. We even left trails. In case you haven't noticed, I got sidetracked thanks to this one." Naruto jerked his head in the direction of Shina. "She would have been, well you know, if it weren't for me." He wasn't too comfortable thinking of what would have happened either. Then again, he was only 13. Well, we're glad to have you back, Uzumaki-san said the merchant from before as he walked over to them. We're stopping here for the day, so you can leave your friend with my wife. She'll clean her up and feed her properly. Shina had woken up to that and clutched Naruto tightly, digging her fingers in his arms. Ouch! Naruto hissed in pain. Relax, Shina, these are good people. You can trust them, and if it helps, I'll have a clone with you the entire way, alright? She finally relented and allowed her to be guided away by the merchant and Naruto's clone. So what's her story? Jiraiya asked, settling down by a tree as the travelers pulled their beasts of burden and carriages aside from the road and began setting up tents and fires to prepare their meals. Ronin, huh? Naruto gave a simple nod. I heard her scream, so I went to check it out and then I found them. They weren't a problem though. It was just difficult to get her to come with me. Naruto plopped down next to the sage and retrieved his last rationing bar and tore it open. If you're wondering whether you're an idiot for saving her, you're not, Jiraiya told him. We're shinobi, true, but that doesn't mean we can't help people. I've been in your situation before and odds are we'll both be in similar situations in the future, so don't beat yourself up about it. Naruto nodded and stretched out his arms, leaning against tree he sat under and closing his eyes. I'm gonna get some sleep in. No, you're not, Jiraiya told him, presenting him with another rubber ball. Get in the practice you lost out on while you went on your little endeavor. Naruto groaned and took the rubber ball of him with a begrudging fine. He practiced for a few hours into the night, long after Jiraiya and the rest had gone to sleep, before he too finally succumbed to fatigue and nodded off. The next day, looks like we're here, shouted the merchant over his shoulder as the city's gates came into view. They had long since required protection on the roads as they had left the perilous roads through the forest hours ago, but Jiraiya had decided they would stick with them for a while longer nonetheless. We can't thank you enough, Jiraiya-sama, said one of the travelers. And you too, of course, Uzumaki-san, added another. Others began to join in and Naruto rubbed the back of his head, greatly enjoying the multitude of thanks. It's no big deal, he told them, although he wouldn't have minded if they kept thanking him. It was nice to be needed, and even better to be thanked for it. Naruto-kun, I can't thank you enough, Shina said as she walked up to him and drew him into a hug. She quickly withdrew herself, and though she was a few years older than him, she sported a red tinge on her cheeks, flustered and perhaps a little embarrassed even by her act. Really, I can't thank you enough. Naruto merely smiled and nodded, quite unsure of what to say. Don't mention it, he told her. Take care of yourself, Shina. Alright, we've got to get going. Take care, people. Jiraiya placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and guided him into another direction. Once they passed the town gates, Jiraiya held up a hand in farewell as they took off in a different direction. Alright, we'll be going now. Take care. The travelers shouted some final goodbyes. Rasengan, do you really think your old lady friend is going to be here? Naruto asked as they walked down familiar roads he had walked nearly 2 weeks ago. This must be the 6th place we've tried, right? I'm starting to get worried about the old man. You and me both, kid. Jiraiya looked at him and patted him on the back. I'm not sure if she's going to be here, but I'm sure hoping she is. Anyway, it looks like we're going to have to find a place to wait for a couple of hours, Jiraiya said, looking to bright afternoon sky. Why's that? Naruto questioned. It's too early, Jiraiya answered. There's no way Tsunade is going to be up and about. Not at this hour. We'll have to wait till dark if we're going to get a chance at seeing her. In the meanwhile though, I'm going to take a soak in the local onsen. Naruto furrowed his brows in a disappointed stare. You're off to perv on random women while we're supposed to be on a mission? Come on, Rasengan, this is low even for you. The blonde exhaled exasperatedly. When was this guy going to give his libido a rest? Look, kid, I've been a lot more missions than you have, alright? I know how to spend my time, so don't go lecturing me, Jiraiya said with clear annoyance. Naruto couldn't argue with him there since it was true. Why don't you come with me? You could use a soak, and if it makes you happy, why don't you do that exercise I showed you in the water? That did sound pretty good, Naruto had to admit. He couldn't remember the last time he visited an onsen. Oh wait, yes he could, and it wasn't exactly great either. Learning how to water walk on boiling hot water was a damn good way to keep motivated though. Naruto had to credit Ebisu for that. Finally he gave in. Alright, I'll come to your stupid onsen, but don't try to drag me into your game of peeping Tom. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. What, you're not into women? Jiraiya goaded. Fuck you, Naruto shot back. Let's get going already, Rasengan. Jiraiya made an indignant noise. When will you stop calling me that, kid? You're cramping my style. What style, Arajiji? Damn it! Hai no Kuni, Tanzakagai outskirts. In the countryside of Hai no Kuni on the far of Tanzakagai, 3 cloaked men in matching gray cloaks and conical straw hats stood on a hilltop overlooking the city of Sin in the distance. On the right was a bespectacled white-haired adolescent man. He wore his hair in a ponytail and had an air of smug confidence and intelligence about him. We are nearly there, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto stated, looking to the man on his left, withdrawing a hand from his cloak to push up his old-fashioned spectacles. Tsunade of the Sannin. She was sighted here not too long ago. Orochimaru did not answer and merely flicked his tongue hungrily. How many years had it been since he last saw her? Orochimaru remembered the day well. It was not so long after her younger brother, Nawaki, had met his early end on the battlefield. In a way, Orochimaru mused, he and Tsunade very much alike, for she, too, was proven to be a prodigy unlike any other, even amongst the elitist. Skilled and competent, as such was expected of the Shodai's granddaughter. Orochimaru once held fond memories of her. After all, she had saved his life many times on the battlefield. There was perhaps even a time he would have seen her as a suitable partner. Yet that fondness came to an end one day, as Orochimaru realized such petty attachments were mere distractions, obstacles on his path to greatness. To become the ultimate being, to fully immerse in the years of scientific research, he knew he would have to cut out his own heart and feed it to the monstrous creature that was his obsession, his insanity, the twisted darkness that resided inside him since birth, festering for years, ever since he had been made an orphan by war. I'm looking forward to see if she's as fine people say she is, sniggered the cloaked figure behind the two, his hands stowed underneath his cloak. I heard her tits are the size of mountains. The serpent summoner repressed the urge to kill him where he stood. He was too competent of an asset to be disposed of so carelessly, especially in these times when so many wanted his head and so few would prefer it to remain on his shoulders. Sasaki, be silent, ordered Kabuto, predictably irked by their companion's vulgar mannerisms. When we go to see her, you best keep your mouth shut or I will shut it for you. Do I make myself clear, Sasaki-kun? Sasaki chuckled provocatively. Sure. No problem, Kabuto-senpai. Enough, Orochimaru ordered, and they immediately fell silent. The 3 cloaked men began to descend from the hilltop. With Jiraiya and Naruto pulled the towel of his head and threw it on top of the heap of used towels in the corner of locker room. Man, that hit the spot. He had to admit taking a soak in the onsen had been a lot more enjoyable than he thought it would have been. Jiraiya's perversion was lost on him as he soaked for a few hours, giving his body a well-deserved break for the first time since his promotion and making some progress with popping the rubber ball. So far he had only gotten it to expand in size, but according to Jiraiya he was thinking along the right lines. Perhaps if he applied finer chakra control and channeled the chakra to whilst applying greater output. Naruto closed his locker and shoved his sealing scroll in his pouch, having opted to wear brown cargo shorts and a green t-shirt with complementary disposable slippers from the bathhouse rather than wear his shinobi attire and coat as it was too hot. Instead, Naruto sealed all of his equipment in his sealing scroll, which he stowed in the pouch now clipped to his lower back. See, that wasn't so bad. Jiraiya dried his hair with a towel in one hand and helped himself to a glass of an exotic-looking beverage complete with a wedge of pineapple and a tiny parasol. Naruto had found it rather feminine of him, yet he had to admit it looked rather tasty. Still, he decided against drinking even though he was positive Jiraiya would let him. Hold this, kiddo. Jiraiya passed him the drink and then shot him a warning look. Get your own if you want one. Naruto's expression faltered. He had hoped to steal a sip or two but instead watched Jiraiya tend to his vanity, as the sage ran a hand through his spiky white hair and cupped his chin in thought. Shorter it is, Jiraiya decided, and he made the ram hand seal. Instantly Naruto could see his hair decrease in length and increase in density, giving it a more rugged, gravity-defying look. What do you think? Truth be told, if Naruto hadn't known any better, he would have thought Jiraiya could pass for someone in his 30s. The man had an incredibly youthfulness about him, and aside from the several scars he had here and on his torso, accumulated from 40 years' worth of experience as a shinobi, his skin was practically flawless, and judging from his chiseled physique, he took great care of his body. Still, Naruto wasn't about to admit that. That would just be weird. You're a little girl on the inside, Naruto said without missing a beat. Still, that is an awesome jutsu. Could you teach it to me? Jiraiya gave him a curious look. Apologize first. Fine, I'm sorry for hurting your feelings. Naruto apologized with absolutely zero repentance in his voice. You little girl, he added under his breath. Jiraiya beckoned him and took his drink back as Naruto stood before the mirror, taking a sip and slapping the blonde in the back of the head. I heard that, he informed. Maybe another time. It's not as easy as I make it look. Here, get me a refill. Jiraiya handed Naruto the glass, empty aside from the ice cubes as the sage at his pineapple wedge. I'll get dressed. Naruto swore a string of profanities on his way out and returned minutes later to find Jiraiya dressed in his usual matching green kimono robe over a fishnet shirt, shinobi trousers, wooden getas and sleeveless red kabuki jacket. Like Naruto, the sage had stowed away his cloak. Gimme that. Jiraiya took the refill from Naruto and downed in 3 large gulps, closing his eyes and pulling a relishing expression as the alcoholic beverage went down his throat. You're going to love this stuff when you're older, kiddo, Jiraiya told him, placing the empty glass on a nearby table and leading them outside. The Chunin shrugged and followed. Yeah, like I haven't got enough problems that want to make me drown my sorrows with alcohol, Naruto commented on their way out. So, we're gonna look for Tsunade now, or are we gonna have a good time with those geishas over there before that? He asked sarcastically. Jiraiya laughed and continued to lead the way. I've got a better idea. How about we go get a few drinks instead? Oh, come on! I was being sarcastic, Naruto complained. You seriously couldn't give the old pervert a window like that, could you? Can we just get to looking for Tsunade? It's nearly been 2 weeks now, Jiraiya. It's not like we've got time to relax. We'll probably run into her in one of these bars, Jiraiya explained. If there's one person that can drink me under the table, it's Tsunade. Jiraiya patted his stomach. I can go for some food. What about you, kid? Naruto was about to protest when his stomach grumbled. Sure, but you're buying, Naruto said. I'm running low on cash as it is, and you still made me buy that stupid cloak and coat. I've hardly got money left to stock up on sealing paper, ink, some new gloves and sandals and kunai. I've been using the Kage Bunshin variation of projectiles for a while now, but it's taxing on chakra. And before you say anything, it never hurts to conserve your chakra, right? Jiraiya agreed rather easily. Sure, why not? I've got some extra sealing paper if you want. He patted the large scroll on his back. I don't just carry this around as an icebreaker for the ladies, kiddo. That's right, you're pretty damn good with Fuinjutsu, aren't you, Rasengan? Naruto remembered. He had completely forgot about that. Hey, can you give me some pointers on creating seals? I'm trying to create my own to save up on money. Maybe some other time, Jiraiya replied, patting him on the shoulder. You still have some ways to go with that jutsu I've been trying to teach you. I'm not teaching you anything else until you've got that one down, understood? Jutsu? Naruto repeated. Then it dawned on him, these exercises were just simply for his chakra control. Noticing his slip-up, Jiraiya didn't bother to deny it and started laughing. It took you long enough to notice. A new jutsu, huh? Naruto's repertoire in that department had improved by leaps and bounds since his promotion, but it never hurt to another ace in the hole. Now that he knew he was actually learning a jutsu and not some vague chakra exercise, Naruto felt a lot more motivated to get it down. So what kind of jutsu are we talking about, Rasengan? You seriously need to stop calling me that. Jiraiya looked over his 2 shoulders to the attractive geishas laughing at the mentioning of his nickname. You're cramping my. Just get to the point, Arajiji. Naruto demanded with fluster. Come on, what about this jutsu you're trying to teach me? What's it called? What's it do? Is it badass? It's gotta be pretty awesome, right? Right, Jiraiya sighed with a dramatic downcast expression. Can't this wait till after we've had something to eat? No, Jiraiya smiled wryly, I guess not, huh? Follow me. Naruto frowned with confusion and followed Jiraiya into an alleyway, and the sage held out his right in front of Naruto, drawing his attention immediately. The exercises I've been showing you are in fact the 2 stages you have to complete to learn this jutsu. Naruto's eyes lit up with amazement as chakra began to swirl in Jiraiya's hand. You're spinning your chakra. Stage 1 was designed for you to learn how to spin your chakra. Jiraiya furrowed his brows as a sphere began to form in his hand. And Stage 2, that's meant for you to learn how to form into a self-sustaining sphere. Naruto's jaw nearly dropped as perfect sphere formed in Jiraiya's hand, spinning rapidly and making a screeching hum that was rather pleasant to listen to. What is that? Naruto didn't even notice he was whispering by now. This, Naruto, said Jiraiya with a devilish grin, is the Rasengan. And then the sphere dispelled in an instant. What do you think, kiddo? That's amazing. So that's how you do it? Naruto reached into his cargo shorts pocket and retrieved the rubber ball. Now that I've seen it, I think I can. No! Jiraiya said quickly, looking around, We're in a pretty densely populated area, Naruto. If you screw it up, it's not just you that can get hurt, you know? You mean those people out there? No, I'm talking about me, idiot, Jiraiya deadpanned. Come on, I'm hungry. Let's go. The sage didn't wait for an answer and walked out of the alley and turned into the first thing he saw. Naruto followed suit with an annoyed expression. He had to get down that exercise soon. If you're paying, can't we at least go to a restaurant? Jiraiya stood still for a moment, and Naruto bumped into. No. I think we picked just the right spot. Jiraiya looked over his shoulder and pointed into the direction of two women in the corner, sitting by themselves and enjoying a drink. Naruto's eyes widened at the sight of them, particularly the pigtailed blonde in a grass-green gambler's jacket over a sleeveless gray kimono-styled blouse held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi that matched her pants. She looked like the women on adult magazine covers with her blouse revealing sizable cleavage, accentuated by the emerald necklace she wore around her neck and her full lips colored pink with lipstick. Aside from the gamble kanji on her back, another notable feature about her was the diamond tattoo on her forehead. Damn! Was all Naruto could say, and Jiraiya chuckled. She's my age, you know, Jiraiya reminded him with a chuckle, taking great pleasure in seeing the look of shock and repulsion in Naruto's face. That's right, Gaki, you were just having impure thoughts over my 50-something-year-old teammate. Naruto felt sick to his stomach, suddenly feeling absolutely zero attraction to the buxom blonde. You're fucking with me, aren't you? Naruto accused with a glare at Jiraiya. The Toad Sage merely shook his head and laughed. You're telling me that was your teammate? Jiraiya rubbed his chin as he always did when in thought. Believe it or not, she was as flat as a Rio coin back in the day. She didn't get to look like that until she was in her 20s. Jiraiya smiled, clearly a fond memory coming to him. Let's go say hello. Naruto followed the sage as they walked over to the table where Tsunade sat next to her dark-haired companion, a woman modestly dressed in a dark-colored kimono hugging a piglet to her chest. That's an odd choice for a pet, Naruto thought as they came to a stop in front of the two. Tsunade's companion was visibly and audibly surprised as Jiraiya stood before them, casting a glance at Naruto briefly and then turning her eyes back to Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sama, she greeted friendlily, albeit somewhat nervously. What are you doing here? Look, Tsunade-sama, it's your old friend. Tsunade audibly exhaled with annoyance and looked up, her light brown eyes shone with disdain. What do you want, Jiraiya? It's been a while. Tsunade, Chapter 6, The Rasengan Challenge. It's been a while. Tsunade, what do you want, Jiraiya? The legendary Kunoichi turned her attention back to her drink and didn't even look at them as she helped herself to a saucer refill of vintage sake. Several heads were turning by now as many of the inn's patrons recognized the two legendary shinobi that made up 2/3 of the Densetsu no Sannin. Whatever it is, be quick about it. I'm in no mood to deal with you right now. Naruto whistled, looking to Jiraiya, half expecting him to look offended or give an angry retort. It turned out, however, that Jiraiya was used to Tsunade's cold shoulder treatment, and he sat down next to Tsunade's aide, who quickly moved to sit next to her teacher as Naruto also sat down in the booth. How long's it been since we last spoke, Tsunade? Jiraiya tried to break the ice with a friendly smile, reaching for the sake bottle on the desk. Tsunade did not reciprocate the sentiment. Not long enough, she responded sourly, pulling the bottle out of his reach. Who's the kid staring at my chest, Jiraiya? Another one of your protégés just waiting to die young? Hey. I wasn't looking at your what do you mean, another protégé. Naruto gave a curious look to Jiraiya, whose expression had turned stony and apprehensive. What is she talking about, Rasengan? Now that he was thinking about it, it made sense Jiraiya had taught others whether it was as a jonin instructor or as a master over an apprentice. He was a shinobi of legendary renown after. Of course others beside himself must have sought him out for training. It also reminded him of the sneering and the disapproval of the old man's advisors. Clearly they had thought Jiraiya could have done better in picking an apprentice. Tsunade burst out laughing, snorting in a rather obnoxious fashion. Her laugh sounded more like an unpleasant cackle to Naruto. I was irritating. Rasengan? At least this one has a sense of humor, Jiraiya. How about we change the subject? Jiraiya offered with a sudden serious expression that surprised Naruto. It was rather uncharacteristic of his teacher. He hadn't thought Jiraiya to be able to get worked up about anything other than women and booze. What old wound was this woman picking at? Jiraiya-sensei, Naruto quickly rectified, not wanting to further embarrass the sage in front of his old acquaintance. Jiraiya gave him a curious look, but said nothing whilst Tsunade merely snorted derisively in clear disapproval. Do you want me to get you a drink while the two of you talk? Now, there's a good student. Tsunade praised mockingly with a raise of her saucer, to which Jiraiya chuckled as he gave Naruto a nod, prompting the youth to get up and head over to the bar counter. Why did you bring him? Tsunade asked whilst Naruto stood in line with other patrons. Her voice had turned even icier, now completely devoid of laughter or snark. Are you trying to mess with me, Jiraiya? Jiraiya noted the steely edge to her tone. No, he answered calmly. Does it bother you he's here? Tsunade paused for a moment, and then turned to her aide. Shizen, take the brat for a walk. Shizen obeyed without a word and got up and walked over to Naruto and placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering something in his ear. They left the establishment moments later and Tsunade leaned over to Jiraiya, who tried not to let his eyes wander over the views she was giving him. Why don't you both save us some time and headache and cut to the chase, Jiraiya? We've been playing this stupid game for years and quite frankly I'm sick and tired of playing it. Tsunade snorted once more. It was a rather unattractive habit, a stark contrast to her unrivaled beauty. You spent weeks tracking me down, you find me, we talk, we have sex, you beg me to come back to Konoha the next morning and when you get my answer, which still is and always will be no, you leave. Honestly, if you were this persistent when we were younger you might have actually scored with me a lot sooner. 1. Jiraiya chuckled and after a moment so did Tsunade. Those were some good times, Jiraiya said after a long pause. I was pretty pathetic back then, wasn't I? Tsunade made out a sound, as if to say, you have no idea. We did have fun though, didn't we? We did. Tsunade admitted quietly with a softer tone. Where did it all go wrong? Jiraiya dramatically asked rhetorically in attempt to amuse her. To his dread, Tsunade answered. I lost the love of my life and my little brother. We lost Orochimaru to his obsession and you lost me. Jiraiya was thankful she smiled. He wasn't too sure how he would have responded if she wasn't. That I did. Jiraiya slid the sake bottle to himself and poured him a saucer, which he raised to Tsunade. To good old times, however long ago they may have been. Tsunade clinked her saucer with his as they both drank. The legendary kunoichi downed her saucer in one, as did Jiraiya, and closed her eyes at the pungent taste. So, why are you here? Outside, Naruto peered into the inn, standing by the door. It looks like they're laughing. That's a good sign, right, Shizen-izan? Naruto looked back to Shizen with a hopeful expression. He quite liked the brunette, even though they had just recently met, she was incredibly friendly. You think she'll agree to come with us? Shizen bit her lip and gave him an uncertain shrug of the shoulders. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but that's just a ritual of theirs, she replied, and noticing his puzzled expression she elaborated. Every now and then when Jiraiya comes to visit he tries to convince her to come home. At first, they used to fight it out, those usually ended in Jiraiya losing. Naruto had an incredulous look on his face but Shizen smiled reassuringly. Oh, I am quite certain Jiraiya-sama let her win those fights, Naruto-kun. But as the years went by, instead of fighting, Jiraiya-sama challenged her to drinking games with the terms of her returning if he won and him leaving if he lost. So he's never won at drinking games, not even once? Shizen nodded and Naruto remembered Jiraiya's words from earlier. If there is one person that can drink me under the table, it's Tsunade. Naruto felt an odd feeling settling in his stomach as he slowly came to realize the trouble Jiraiya went through. The trouble was still going through his entire life. Naruto experienced a clarity he had never felt before and he truly knew he now understood Jiraiya. The similarities between them were numerous, they were exactly alike, the same side of the same coin. Even now when Jiraiya was a fully grown man, deep down there still was this insecure young man Naruto could relate to. Both were overlooked for another by their sensei, scorned by the woman they loved since their youth, and always the desperate undying need to please, to be acknowledged, to never let those precious to them down festering in their gut. 2. In some ways it made Naruto happy he was exactly like his sensei, that he now understood what the sage had seen in the scruffy, diamond in the rough, young man he was. On the other hand, Naruto felt both pity and anger for himself as much as Jiraiya. We're idiots, aren't we? Naruto said out loud. Shizen was flabbergasted and undecided on how to respond to that, thus she opted not to respond at all. Shizen-izan. Naruto spoke after a long moment of silence. Arrow Jiraiya. He's been in love with her his whole life, hasn't he? Shizen's expression was unreadable for a moment, but then she smiled and nodded her head. You're quite perceptive, Shizen observed, though it sounded like a compliment. Naruto would have disagreed, but she continued and said, It is true Jiraiya-sama has been in love with Tsunade-sama for many years now. Why won't she give him a chance? Naruto asked. It was almost a snarl, a demand, as though he felt Tsunade had personally wronged him by not returning Jiraiya's affections. Was this the path he might have gone down with Sakura if he hadn't been promoted? Would he have spent the rest of his life like Jiraiya had, promiscuous and on the borderline of alcoholism, just to get over the one that got away? No! Naruto nearly voiced his thoughts. Shizen gave him a sad smile. I wish I could tell you, but it's not my place to say, Naruto-kun. Naruto tightened his fists. I'm going back in there, he decided. I don't think that's a good idea, Naruto-kun, Shizen told him, grabbing his by his elbow. Why not? Naruto demanded, tugging back his arm and noting Shizen's firm grip despite her slender stature. What could possibly happen? Crash! Naruto fell to the ground, swept by a sudden explosion. He quickly scrambled to his feet and looked to the source of the crashing sound, realizing it had been a result of Jiraiya crashing through the inn's wall. From the guard Jiraiya still held up, he could tell the damage had largely been avoided. You still pack a punch as ever, Tsunade-heim. For some inexplicable reason, Jiraiya was still grinning as Tsunade exited through the newly created hole in the inn's wall. Judging from her expression alone, Naruto could tell she was absolutely livid. Ero Sennin. Naruto ran over to Jiraiya and took a defense stance in front of him. What did you do to piss off that old hag? Immediately, Naruto noticed the color drain from Jiraiya's face, and a split second later the sage had grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and jumped high into the air as Tsunade brought down her fist on the ground, leveling the road. Chunks of earth split upwards from the sheer impact, and Naruto's jaw dropped. Thanks. Naruto was painfully aware he stuttered, but then, anyone would be if they had narrowly escaped death. What the fuck is up with that monstrous strength, Jiraiya? He was so alarmed he even dropped the nickname he usually reserved for his teacher. Stuck to the side of a building, Jiraiya moved Naruto to his side so he could support himself against the building with chakra under his soles and hands. I told you she was strong, didn't I? The hell you did. Not this strong, Jiraiya put on a serious expression. I'm going to talk to her, you stay here. His pride still damaged, Naruto outright refused immediately. I'm not running away from this old bitch. Naruto went through a string of hand seals and ignored Jiraiya's shout. No, Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. Naruto's chest expanded significantly, and like a dragon he breathed a stream fire, aiming it to bear down on Tsunade. He was confident she would back off now, but was in for a shocking surprise as Tsunade disappeared with a sealless shunshin and appeared between the master and student, grabbing Naruto by the back of his head and rocketing him into the ground face first. Boom! That should put him out, Tsunade ruled with a mere glance at dust cloud billowing from the crater she had just created. Now what do I do about you? She turned to Jiraiya with a murderous glare. Both of them were stuck sideways to the building across the severely damaged inn. You can't just stay the hell away from me, can you, Jiraiya? She spat his name with venom. Jiraiya glanced away briefly to check on Naruto, but the dust obstructed his view. I thought the ladies liked persistence. Tsunade was not amused. We don't. And with that she aimed a fist for her old teammate, only to come to a sudden halt as Jiraiya grinned for an inexplicable reason. Tsunade looked down and found her body swept over by suffocating mud, racing vertically over the building to immobilize her. What she found even more surprising was that the young man she thought she had taken out was responsible for it. With blood running down the side of his face, Naruto was crouched on the ground, fingers deep in the earth, as he directed his Doria Taiga to capture Tsunade. That ought to keep you in your place. Cute, Tsunade commented dryly. But hardly effective. With a merely flex of her muscles the mud flew off her and she was upon the younger blonde in an instant, touching down on the ground, mere inches away. Naruto jumped back immediately, back flipping through the air and landed in a sloppy crouch as now more and more civilians were rushing about outside. Most, if not all of them, were rooting for Tsunade, who must have been a regular visitor to Tanzaka-gai. From their perspective, Naruto was just an idiot who went looking for trouble and found it. I need to be careful I don't accidentally kill any of these people, Naruto thought with frustration. Too bad I don't have a close-range technique to deal with her. Wait a minute. A grin came to him as a plan formulated in his mind so quick, he had to remember to pat himself on the shoulder. Tsunade cracked her fist with a sadistic expression. So you seriously want to fight me, huh, brat? Tsunade sneered. It's too late to back down now. Don't blame me if you die. Well, too bad for you, hag. Naruto took a fighting stance, rearing back his right hand and holding up his left arm in a high guard. Because I'm not gonna die anytime soon. I'm going to be Hokage someday, so don't feel embarrassed when I beat you. The look of shock that struck across the Tsunade's face went unnoticed by Naruto as he pushed his palms forward, directing the attack not her, but on the ground in front of her. Futon, Repusho! A massive dust cloud rose from the earth and Naruto could hear Jiraiya's laugh nearby. Tsunade looked around in the dust cloud, still under mild shock but fuming her clothes had gotten dirty. There you are! She shouted at a silhouette, ramming her fist in the youth's face. Poof! What the Before she could finish her sentence, Tsunade was struck by two simultaneous high kicks. However, she smirked as they caught both in her hands using crossed arm block. You're going to have to better than that. I doubt it! Shouted Naruto's disembodied voice as suddenly a pair of hands gripped Tsunade by the ankles and pulled her knee-deep down into the ground. Tsunade's eyes widened as the dust cloud spiraled towards the source of a vaguely familiar screeching sound. The Rasengan? Tsunade whispered in a hiss as more clones jumped on her to hold her still as Naruto supported a pathetically erratically shaking and volatile-looking orb of chakra in one hand. Naruto rushed forward, rearing back an arm as he ran the last 10 feet. Jiraiya, you fool! Tsunade bellowed, and with extraordinary strength exclusive to her alone, she threw off the clones and coated her hand in chakra just as Naruto came in striking distance. Boom! Jiraiya rushed over immediately as the last of the smoke cleared and found Naruto on the ground with a shocked expression, and he looked upwards to Tsunade with an expression mixed between shock and fear. You fool! Tsunade bellowed angrily, the chakra coat dissolving over her hand, and she immediately turned to Jiraiya, her livid expression at full flare. You fool! She shouted again. Naruto got to his feet and took a few steps back, highly apprehensive and confused what had just happened. He had managed to perform the Rasengan, hadn't he? If so, then why was she so livid? Naruto opened his mouth but Tsunade shot him a dangerous expression and Naruto looked to Jiraiya for an answer. I don't want to hear a word from you, brat! Tsunade barked fiercely at Naruto. Then turning to Jiraiya she grabbed him by the jacket and pulled him close, and growled aggressively. By far, Naruto reckoned, she was the more intimidating out of the two despite the fact Jiraiya was significantly taller and muscular than she was. What were you thinking trying to teach him a jutsu like that? Tsunade's grip tightened on the sage's jacket. That kid was lucky I noticed the imbalance when I did, or you'd be scraping him off the walls, Jiraiya. When will you learn to be more responsible? How many students do you need to lose? Jiraiya's hand shot up in a sudden motion and grabbed Tsunade's by the wrist, pulling her grip away from his jacket. Relax, Jiraiya told her with a calm voice. Why are you getting so worked up, Tsunade? You nearly killed him yourself. That was to teach him a lesson. Tsunade swung her hand back and turned around to Naruto, who instantly straightened up as he caught her glare. You brat, if I were you, I would give up on that jutsu. A kid like you won't be able to complete it. The fight in Naruto hadn't let him yet, and returned the glare defiantly. A kid like me? Naruto challenged. What's that supposed to mean, you old hag? A vein appeared on Tsunade's forehead, and she looked like she was about to pummel Naruto to death, but fortunately she kept her cool. I mean a reckless fool like you, who has no regard whatsoever to his own life. Do you have any idea how many years the Yondaime worked on that jutsu before he completed it? How long it took Jiraiya to master it? The Yondaime? Naruto repeated with shocked expression that matched his tone. You didn't know? For a moment it looked like she was even more ticked off, but the shocked expression on Naruto's face amused her. She let out a shrill laugh. That's right, that jutsu, the Rasengan, was created by none other than Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto looked away from Tsunade and his gaze moving to Jiraiya instead. No words were necessary. The sage merely nodded with a solemn but otherwise unreadable expression. Namikaze was a genius amongst geniuses, and Jiraiya over there, though he might not be as smart, is an S-ranked shinobi. Do you seriously think you can master a jutsu they struggled with for so long? Tsunade snorted. Don't fool yourself, brat. You're 1,000 years too young to be even trying. Naruto tightened his fists and looked Tsunade in the eye and said with defying determination, So what? So what? She repeated. So what if the Yondaime created this jutsu? So what if it took him years to do it? And so fucking what if Jiraiya had a hard time with it? Naruto challenged in a loud voice. I'm going to surpass both of them. I'll become the strongest Hokage Konoha's ever seen. I'll become the greatest shinobi to have ever lived. You can count on that. For reasons unknown to Naruto, Tsunade and Jiraiya immediately shared looks. What Naruto had just said wasn't said by very often, and moreover, the last person either of them had heard say it with such intensity was none other than their old comrade, Orochimaru. Rasengan, Naruto called to Jiraiya and the sage looked at him. How long did it take you to learn the Rasengan? Jiraiya cast a quick glance at Tsunade and then said 3 months. I've had less than 2 weeks so far, Naruto said to Tsunade. How about we have a little bet? You're a gambler, right? Not a very good one, interjected Shizen from the sidelines, though she went unheard. That's right, Tsunade confirmed with an intrigued nod. Naruto grinned as he always did when faced with a challenge. Then how about this? If I can master the Rasengan in 1 week, you'll come quietly and return with us to Konoha to heal Hiruzenjishin. If I lose, which I won't, but in the case I lose, Jiraiya and I leave and neither of us will ever bother you again. Naruto, I'll take that bet, Tsunade announced, much to Jiraiya's dismay. And I tell you what, I'll sweeten the pot with this. Tsunade took off her necklace from which an emerald stone hung. I don't want your shitty jewelry, lady, Naruto said immediately. Having said that, it had a comical result as Jiraiya face planted, Tsunade twitched and Shizen's jaw dropped. Naruto! Jiraiya whispered in hiss from the sidelines, prompting Naruto to give him a confused look. That necklace belonged to the Shodai Hokage. It's worth more 3 mountains worth of land. Now Naruto was the one whose jaw dropped. Alright, I'll take that too then. I've got rent to pay, damn it. You have 1 week. Tsunade held up a finger. You're on, Granny. Tsunade twitched. If it had been a different situation she would have broken his jaw by now. Shizen, we're leaving. Tsunade-sama. The two walked off, leaving Jiraiya and Naruto their own devices, and once they got out of sight Jiraiya slapped Naruto in the back of the head. You idiot! What, you don't think I can pull it off? Naruto held his head in mild pain. No, that I think is actually a pretty solid bet, said Jiraiya, but he quickly silenced Naruto, who looked he was about to make a cocky remark. You're an idiot for trying to pull off the Rasengan without completing it. If it hadn't been for Tsunade, I really would be scraping you off the walls, kid. Naruto glared at him, not particularly happy with his skills being put in doubt. You didn't seem too ticked off when I did it. Of course not in front of her. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto by the shoulders. The younger shinobi only now began to understand how angry Jiraiya was at him. Or perhaps the word he was looking for was concerned, as Jiraiya's eyes reflected pain that seemed out of place. What was the sage think about? That's not the kind of jutsu you test in the field, brat. The Rasengan is a spinning orb of grinding chakra. What the hell do you think would happen if someone used one as unstable and volatile as yours? Naruto clenched his fists tightly, but he had to admit Jiraiya was right. You're right, Naruto admitted in quiet tone. It was stupid of me to try it. Don't give me that look, Jiraiya said after a moment as they began to walk into a direction of their own. For not even completing the second stage properly, that was pretty damn good attempt. I'm surprised it didn't explode in your face. You think so? Naruto's expression lit up. For real? Jiraiya nodded but quickly added, don't let that go to your head though. You've got stage 1 down, but you've still got some ways to go with the second before you get to the third. Third? Naruto repeated. I thought you said there were only 2. What? I said what the first and second stages were, and then I showed you what the result would be of combining what you learned from those 2 stages. That's the third stage of mastering the Rasengan. How did you not get that? Naruto was red in the face with embarrassment. Shut up. On a nearby rooftop a lone cloaked figure looked down upon Tsunade and Shizen as they left. Then shifting his gaze to Jiraiya and Naruto, the figure's hand, stowed under his cloak, clenched, groping out to something as Sasaki smiled ferociously. These Sannin are incredible. If they are anything like Orochimaru, this should make for some interesting developments. The wind kicked up nearby cast Sasaki's coat aside, giving full view of 4 swords, 2 on each hip, intricately designed in wave patterns of gold and black steel with shapes of silver arachnids. Another 2 hands under Sasaki's folded arms reached out and drew his cloak to a close, and Sasaki sniggered to no one in particular as his eyes zoned in on Uzumaki Naruto. Interesting. The next day, in a clearing several miles into Tanzakugai's outskirts, an hour or so traveling from their lodgings, Naruto and Jiraiya were training by a river, or more accurately, Naruto was training whilst Jiraiya was tending to his libido. It was late in the afternoon, but the sun would be up for a few more hours. The weather wasn't too bad either. It was little over 6 and the weather was rather chilly, though not so much it distracted from his training. Not as much as Jiraiya's undignified giggling did anyway. It's in the middle of the day, at broad daylight, and you're reading one of those perverted magazines. Naruto threw the rubber ball in his hand at Jiraiya with an irritated expression, which only increased as Jiraiya caught the ball with ease without even looking up from the adult literature. I'm serious, come on, why don't you try to help properly like a normal sensei would? Don't wanna. Naruto deftly caught the rubber ball aimed for his face and took a wide stance, exhaling a deep breath and closing his eyes as he concentrated on channeling his chakra into the object. Step 1 was relatively easy by now, simply spinning the chakra was not a problem. Step 2 was another case though. It didn't have much to do with spinning, it had more to do with using denser chakra to break the rubber ball, as though to expand the chakra. Naruto suspected they were using balls in the first place because the Rasengan was a spherical product of combining step 1 and 2 and by destroying the water balloons and rubber's balls without touching them. Thus the only logical explanation was that the physics of it all made it form into a sphere on its own. The reason why Naruto's earlier attempt had failed aside from his lack in control of his chakra density was because he was trying to force a principle of physics without the need to. In other words, his forcing the chakra into a sphere was not only an exercise in futility, it was highly dangerous because it made his orb of chakra prone to losing rotation and exploding. And who would have thought a harmless-looking thing like the Rasengan could be that volatile? You look like you just figured it out, Jiraiya observed, looking up from his magazine with mild curiosity. Naruto nodded, confident in his epiphany. Yeah, I think I've got it. You think? Jiraiya lowered his magazine, a steely expression in his eyes. There's no I think in our world, Naruto. Either you know you're right or you don't. You know what happens to those who think they know something in our line of work? Naruto gave no encouragement, but Jiraiya answered anyway. They die, Naruto. They die early on in the game, and it's never pretty. All right. Naruto replied agitatedly. It seemed as though Jiraiya would only offer his insight when he felt like it, and not when Naruto asked for it. It was a pain in the ass, but he knew why the sage was so intent on making Naruto struggle on his own, so that he could learn from his mistakes. I know, okay? Are you happy now? Jiraiya gave him one of his rare serious frowns. It's not about making me happy, brat. It's about you taking this lesson to heart. I didn't survive this long on luck, you know? Neither did Hiruzen-sensei. Right. Naruto didn't have much else for a reply and nodded to Jiraiya and held up the rubber ball again. I know what I did wrong and I know how to fix it. Good, Jiraiya said, looking to the sun and getting to his feet and rolling up his magazine. You go work on that. Where are you going? Naruto asked as Jiraiya walked off. Research, Naruto swore under his breath, glaring daggers at Jiraiya's back. Tanzakugai. In a wide alley behind one of Tanzakugai's many liquor establishments stood Tsunade and Shizen. The former's eyes were fixated on the three cloaked men in front of her, one of whom was none other than Orochimaru. How many years has it been, Tsunade? Orochimaru's smile was either forced or naturally disturbing. His bespectacled associate gave an unusual respectful nod to Tsunade, though it went unnoticed. The other associate merely smiled, and by the looks of his eyes he wasn't looking at her face. So what they say is true, Sasaki Wolf whistled. You are a pretty one, aren't you? And then, with the slightest of movements, just as an Orochimaru's brows furrowed in anger, Tsunade glower and a wave of pure, terrifying killer intent washed over the three. Orochimaru was far too seasoned and on par with the legendary Kunoichi. His only reaction was a shift in his steps and noticeable apprehension. His silver-haired associate broke out in a bead of sweat and took a step back whilst Sasaki instinctively jumped back a significant distance, clearly about to unsheath his blades. We are not here to fight, Orochimaru reminded his swordsman in a clearly agitated hiss. His voice took a softer tone as he looked back to his former teammate with a disarming smile. We are just here to talk, Tsunade. Not long enough. Orochimaru gave her a confused look. You asked how long it had been, said Tsunade. The answer is not long enough. Perhaps your attitude will change once you hear me out, Tsunade, Orochimaru replied. I have a proposition for you. Tsunade unfolded her arms and cracked her fists. Yeah, you and Jiraiya both. The look of mild shock on Orochimaru's face did not deter her as Tsunade began to approach them. Kabuto took a stance, flinging aside his cloak and activating chakra scalpels. Shizen pulled her sleeve and aimed her wrist-mounted Senbon launcher. I heard what you did to Sensei, Tsunade stated as though she was telling time. Usually I wouldn't give a damn about what you did, you'd be too much of an effort to track down, and let's be honest, I don't care that much for the old man. Still though, she cracked her knuckles again, and this time more menacingly, I can't in good conscience let your ass go unkicked whilst you're within my reach. Orochimaru took a good look around him and instantly realized the enclosed area they were in was the perfect battlefield for Tsunade. Even if they outnumbered her, all it took to be down and out for the count was one punch, for his associates anyway. Hear me out at least. I came here with an offer. Why not listen to it before you make your decision? I'm not interested in what you've got to say, Orochimaru, Tsunade said with a detached coldness. Orochimaru glared at her, clearly frustrated with her narrow-mindedness. I can bring them back, Tsunade. That seemed to do the trick, as Tsunade stopped dead in her tracks. What did you just say, Nawaki? Dan, Orochimaru said in a whisper. I can bring them both back, to you, Tsunade. After years of research, I have mastered that jutsu. I can bring them back from the dead, both of them. Nawaki and Dan can live once again if you hear me out. From the sidelines an unnerved Shizen had gotten over her apprehension and made to interject. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade held up a hand. Quiet, Shizen! She barked with a glance over her shoulder. Then looking back to Orochimaru she gave the smallest of inclinations of the head. What are you talking about? Orochimaru smiled in a knowing and conceited manner. Join me and I will grant you your most desired wish. You can have them both back, your beloved younger brother and your lover. All you need to do is join my cause. Tsunade dug her fingers into the palms of her hands as her fists shook. You mean to say you can bring back the dead? You better not be playing games with me, Orochimaru. She spat his name as though it was corrosive venom. It does not matter how, Orochimaru sneered, his serpentine features standing out in the darkened alley. All that matters is your answer. I need you by my side, Tsunade. Why? She demanded. Orochimaru threw up his hands theatrically with a dark cackle. Unsurprisingly. I have many enemies. Who better than you to have my back? You saved my life on the battlefield many times before and you will do so again, if you want to see them again, that is. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade immediately silenced her immediately. Shizen, be quiet. Orochimaru flicked his freakishly long, saliva-dripping tongue at Shizen, who looked unnerved, and then looked back to Tsunade. So, what do you say? I will have to think about, Tsunade said after a long moment of silence. When do you need my answer? Preferably today, Orochimaru said almost immediately. Tsunade picked up on it instantly. You weren't kidding. You must have some dangerous enemies if you're this pressed for time. You have 3 days, Tsunade. We will meet in the outskirts of the city. Come if you wish to see your loved ones again. Orochimaru turned his back on Tsunade and walked away, his associates close on his tail. After a long moment of silence, Shizen spoke up timidly. Are you going to take him up on his offer, Tsunade-sama? I don't know, Shizen. She gave a heavy sigh. I need a drink. 2 days later, night-time, Jiraiya brushed aside the high curtains as he walked into a tiny drinking establishment many blocks away from the bar they had found Tsunade. As expected, he found Tsunade slumped on a stool, leaning backwards as she took another shot of what he expected to be strong liquor. Jiraiya ordered a drink, pointing to Tsunade as he did so and sat down next to her. I'll have what she's having. With a drink in his hand, Jiraiya finally turned to look at Tsunade, whose expression was unnaturally blank. Where's your cute little assistant? I sent her away. Her whining was getting to me. What's with the long face, Tsunade? It doesn't suit you? Jiraiya sniffed the drink in his hand and downed the shot glass in one, closing his eyes as the bitter-tasting beverage went down his throat. I need some lemons with these. Tsunade sighed tiredly, a rare expression of vulnerability on her face. Jiraiya, do you know why I look this way? To preserve the beauty you had in your youth? The sage shrugged in ignorance. To preserve my beauty, bah! How vain do you think I am? The bartender came by to refill their drinks, and as he left, Tsunade's ire became more visible as she sat up in the poorly lit establishment. Gone was her look of vulnerability, yet it somehow still remained present in her body language. Have you ever woken up and found an old man looking back at you in the mirror? Did it take you a few minutes before you finally realized that it was your own reflection? I hate being old, Jiraiya. I hate it more than anything. Jiraiya, for his part, didn't seem to be fazed by what she said, snacking from the bowls of peanuts on the counter. It was as if he was completely uninterested and indifferent to what she was saying. Of course I have, he said after a while, and Tsunade gave him a look he could not quite decipher. The only difference between you and me, Tsunade, I keep seeing my reflection every day and I'm fine with it. I guess I don't pity myself the way you do. Despite this, Tsunade did not seem to be offended. Right. Suppose I'm a coward, aren't I, Jiraiya? Not as gutsy as you. I never have been. Tsunade reached over the counter and grabbed a bottle, uncaring to the apprehensive look the bartender was giving them. Why did you come here, Jiraiya? You know why. She shook her head so slowly her pigtails didn't even move. No, she said, facing him with a serious look in her eye, I don't. What few patrons had been left in the bar seemed to be leaving. Perhaps it was an omen of bad things to come. Why did you come? I'm sure you've made some contacts that could have helped out the old man. It wouldn't have cost you much. You were never one to take anything at face value, Jiraiya stated with a loft smile. It's one of the many things I've always liked about you, Tsunade. For whatever reason, whether it was that last remark or perhaps something else that troubled her, Tsunade spat on the floor next to her. Orochimaru's back, she said with a monotone voice. He's come to recruit me. The stunned expression on Jiraiya went unnoticed as Tsunade looked down to her drink on the counter, not touching it, but simply looking down as though there was something of great interest at the bottom of the shot glass. What did you tell him? Jiraiya said after a moment of silence. Did you give him an answer? Why, would you be jealous if I took him up on that offer, Jiraiya? You're such a child. Her tone fell cold and derisive. I've always hated that about you. The tension in the air kicked up. The bartender wisely decided to stick to cleaning his glassware on the far side of the counter whilst Jiraiya's expression turned into a stony one. No, but I suppose I would have to kill you if you did. Tsunade. Letting that sink in for a moment, Jiraiya looked away again, raising his glass to his lips, yet he did not take a sip. Undoubtedly his mind was elsewhere, thinking of the implications of Orochimaru's arrival and resenting the timing of it all. He's a traitor, Tsunade. He betrayed Konoha, he betrayed you, sensei. And you, right? Tsunade interjected sharply. After all, you considered him to be your best friend. A pity he didn't feel the way, huh? She mocked. Maybe. Jiraiya looked at her again, now with intensity in his eyes. No, he said firmly and answered her questioning look, no maybes. Orochimaru is no longer my comrade, Tsunade, don't play your games with me. I won't hesitate to kill him, and neither will he to kill me. Chi. Tsunade glared at him momentarily but said nothing further. Since we're scratching open up old wounds, Jiraiya said, did Orochimaru happen to offer you a way to be reunited with them? With Dan and Na. Don't say his name. Tsunade barked loudly, her voice resounding in the near-empty establishment. How did you know? She demanded after a while. Jiraiya met her golden eyes and saw a glimmer of pain. Instantly he felt a shame greater than he would have thought. I've been tracking Orochimaru for years, ever since he defected, you know that. It's given me some insight as to how he recruits his people. What you don't know is that he's begun falling in your great-uncle's footsteps. I don't know how he did. The Senju were thought to all have died in the war or simply disappeared, but some way, somehow, he got his hands on that jutsu. Tsunade's eyes widened considerably. She made a choking noise as the severe implications dawned up on her like a tidal wave. The Edo Tensei? She whispered as though she could not believe what she had just heard. But I thought Sensei destroyed all the documents. He promised me the day. Abruptly and as quick as it happened, her outburst died in her throat. The look Jiraiya gave her was laced with understanding and pity. You tried to get your hands on it too, didn't you? Her silence urged him to go on. Nawaki was only 12 years old back then, a wet-behind-theirs courier ninja. He wanted to fight on the front line, but you didn't let him, so he signed on to be a courier ninja behind your back, and on the very first mission he was sent on. Stop. He died in a horrible explosion. It was a booby trap, and a pretty good one at that. A rookie genin wouldn't have been able to spot it. Jiraiya continued onwards, feeling as though she had to be reminded, feeling as though this was the only way to change her mind. I had never seen you cry so hard before, Tsunade. It broke my heart. Jiraiya, stop it. Tsunade's voice had taken a pleading tone to it by now, but Jiraiya ignored her. That night after Orochimaru came back, after he retrieved Nawaki's body. I never told you this, but I went to the site where it happened. Tsunade turned to him with a stricken expression, her eyes wide and tears welling up. And what you also don't know is that Orochimaru had tracked Nawaki's killers down. He wanted to let you know where they were so you could have your revenge. He told me how he felt when his parents were killed, and then it all made sense to me. I took the information Orochimaru gave me, the location of the squad that had been responsible for Nawaki's death, and I found them. And then I killed them all. Tsunade was at loss for words, and Jiraiya continued, having no confidence he could retell this story again. Something changed in me that day, Tsunade. I had killed them, and for the first time in my life, I felt guilt, a terrible, terrible guilt. I fell to my knees and I cried. I cried just as hard as you did the night before, and I prayed to whomever would listen to forgive me. I had never felt so sick, so rotten. I felt as though I had become the devil himself. Swept in emotions, Jiraiya slammed his fist on the counter. I killed many before that night, and I have killed many since. But I never killed without the need to, without being told to. They were my enemies, true, and they had killed Nawaki, and there was a war going on, and yet I still found myself praying for forgiveness. Then why did you do it? Tsunade screamed at him, sweeping their drinks and bottle of alcohol of the counter as she got to her feet and the bar stool fell, anger in her voice and tears streaming down his eyes. Yet the anger was not directed at him, Jiraiya could tell. She was angry at herself, and after a long moment of silence, Jiraiya gave her a response that chilled her to the bone. So that you wouldn't have to. I never asked you to that. Jiraiya smiled in a blend of affection and nostalgia, cupping Tsunade's chin. Even while seated, he was tall enough to do so. Strangely enough, she did not resist his touch. Even back then I had seen the hate in Orochimaru. I had finally found out why he was so different from us that night he told me he would have jumped at the chance to kill his parents' killers. I couldn't stand the thought of you becoming like him, so I went in your stead and I avenged Nawaki on my own and I kept it from you. Why didn't you tell me? Jiraiya scoffed as though her were mocking her. Why didn't I tell you I avenged your brother before you could do it yourself? No, I was never going to tell you, Tsunade. That was a secret I intended to take with me to my grave. He knew what she was going to say and cut her off before she could speak. The only reason I am telling you now is because you're about to join the man that betrayed us and attacked our home, Nawaki's home. There couldn't be a greater insult to his memory, Tsunade. She had offered no response, and in her position, nobody probably would have one. You know why I brought Naruto with me for this mission, Tsunade? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It sure as hell wasn't to guilt trip you, and it sure as hell wasn't because he's Minato's kid. There was clear hesitation as he said the name, as though he had never spoken it before. When I look at that kid, do you know what I see? I doubt you would. You've been drinking yourself into a stupor for years. But what I see in Naruto is something great. I see the future in that kid. I know he is going to change the world someday, Tsunade. With or without my help, and I prefer to be a part of it for as long as I can. Grateful for a change of subject, Tsunade shook her head. What are you talking about? When I fought him the other day I saw nothing special. He's got guts, but it'll take more than that, Jiraiya. His parents were already jonin at his age. I knew you would say that. Jiraiya shook his head with a confident grin. Naruto's a one-in-a-million kind of person. I've kept a close eye on him. He has a quality about him that I haven't seen since. Well, it doesn't matter, Jiraiya quickly amended as the image of a red-haired, pale-skinned teenager with ripple-patterned eyes came to memory. What matters is that my gut is telling me Naruto's the one. He has to be, not this again. Tsunade's outburst came as expected. Jiraiya, you can't possibly be serious. You've been ranting and raving about this prophecy for years and it's cost you 2 students already. When will you be satisfied? How many more have to die before you're finally convinced? He's the one. Jiraiya slammed his palm on the counter and stood out of the bar stool with an unsettling grin on his face. He could have been a cult member from the way he was shaking with exhilaration. I'm telling you, Tsunade, Naruto is the child of prophecy. He's going to change the world. If you say so, Tsunade couldn't help but admire Jiraiya's unwavering faith and conviction in the prophecy foretold to him by the toads. She remembered the days when she, too, was as fanatic about Konoha, a young kunoichi, scion of the noble Senju clan and a patriot at heart, so happy to serve, so willing to fight for country and village like her parents, grandfather and great-uncle had done before her. So what does that have to do with me? She asked eventually. Well, to tell you the truth, my mission wasn't just to bring you back to Konoha to help the old man, Tsunade. From the look on her face, Jiraiya could tell she wasn't in the least surprised. They want you to become the Godame Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade. Tsunade burst out laughing, spilling her drink, as she laughed loudly. Are you out of your mind, Jiraiya? Why would I even step foot again in that village, let alone become the Hokage? Don't make me laugh. It's not a joke, Tsunade, Jiraiya said smoothly. Tsunade shook her head, her honey brown eyes fixated on his. Why aren't you taking the job? You can't possibly tell me they haven't offered you. Oh, they have, Jiraiya said nonchalantly. They've been trying to get me to take the hat for years now, but we both know I'm not capable of leading a village. I'm a fighter, and I'd like to think I'm a pretty good teacher. A nostalgic smile crept to his face, but it quickly disappeared. But we both know I'd be nothing but a figurehead if I took the job. I wouldn't know the first about being Hokage, but you on the other hand. No, Tsunade refused flatly. Not on your life. Why not? Jiraiya asked with genuine curiosity, though he had a pretty good idea why already. Tsunade had a commitment phobia for as long as he had known her. Sadly, the only one who had gotten her over then was Dan. But after he died, Tsunade went back to her old ways. You'd be a great Hokage, and the first woman to be a Kage at that. 3. Don't patronize me, Jiraiya. I'm not taking the job. Jiraiya shrugged and got off the bar stool again and stretched his arms, stifling a yawn. Well, the offer is on the table depending on how long it'll take us to get back to Konoha and when you'll leave, Tsunade. Wait a minute, you actually think I'm going to lose that bet with that kid? Jiraiya nodded as though it was the simplest truth in the world. Oh, you're going to lose all right. I've got no doubts in my mind about that. He headed for the exit and turned around for a moment. Tsunade. I really hope you don't take up Orochimaru on that offer. It'd be too much trouble to kill the both of you. With that, Jiraiya left, leaving Tsunade with a stunned expression. She then smiled for a moment and shook her head as she too got up and tossed the golden Ryo coin at the barkeep, who caught the golden token with bulging eyes, unable to formulate a proper response as Tsunade pulled on her jacket and left. I ran out of regular bills, sorry for your troubles, Tsunade muttered as she left. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. Early hours, with Naruto. In the same clearing he had been for the past few days, Naruto held his hand in his wrist and channeled his chakra, surrounded by fallen trees, small crates, and shattered rock. Rasengan. The result was much stronger than it had been in only a few days ago. In the palm of his hand was a softly screeching, perfectly shaped Rasengan the size of his fist. Naruto reckoned he could make it bigger if he wanted to, but he decided on playing it safe and building his way up to size. All that mattered at the moment was that he got down the principles of the 3 steps necessary to perform the jutsu. For a few moments, Naruto played with the Rasengan in his hand, figuring out the best way to thrust the jutsu at someone. This jutsu would be even deadlier if I could figure out a way to throw it like a kunai or a shuriken or something like that. He toyed with the idea for a minute or so before dismissing it as an insane, and not to mention impossible notion. This jutsu might be self-sustaining once you've done it, but going at it for 30 hours in 2 days really puts a drain on your reserves. Naruto cancelled the jutsu and pulled his turtleneck over his head and sat down by a tree, yawning as he nodded off and fell asleep. Jiraiya's suite. Jiraiya sluggishly stumbled past the door, clutching his heart as he closed his right eye in extreme discomfort, knocking over trinkets off the stand by the door. The sage swore as loudly as his ragged breathing allowed him, and he fell face first on the ground, clutching his heart with a pained smile on his face. Damn it. Tsunade. Midday, Tanzakagai outskirts. Orochimaru and his lackeys were already waiting in the clearing by the time Tsunade had gotten there. A brief look around and she knew why he had wanted to meet her out here in the open, surrounded by a thick line of trees. The clearing provided to be large enough to perform the technique, yet at the same time provide enough space to get out of the way in case Tsunade changed her mind and decided to go on a rampage. She smiled wryly, supposing no S-rank shinobi survived that long without always having a contingency plan, as she came to a stop halfway in the clearing. So you've come, Tsunade? Orochimaru announced theatrically as he approached her on his own. His grin was so wide it appeared as though his face was about to split with the clear smugness evident in his tone. Where is your little friend? I had thought she would have wanted to see her uncle return to the land of the living. Tsunade crossed her arms over her chest. That's none of your concern, Orochimaru, she said with a no-nonsense tone. I came here to give you my answer. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed slightly. But before I do that, I want you to hold your end of the bargain first. Orochimaru repressed a snarl with visible restraint and looked briefly over his shoulder to his associates. They were standing perfectly still next to another a good 20 feet away. As you wish, Tsunade. Orochimaru smiled again in his twisted fashion. I suppose it would only make sense. Get on with it. Tsunade barked loudly. This time the smile did not return immediately, as Orochimaru found it difficult to cope with the total and utter lack of respect. Usually those who spoke to him with such respect were either dispatched by Kabuto, his other lieutenants, or, depending on the gravity of the insult, himself. However, this was not just anyone who was insulting him. Orochimaru fully knew that. Tsunade was one of the few in the world that were in his league, until he became the perfect being. Tsunade's eyes were locked onto his and Orochimaru twitched as he suppressed another snarl. Now then, let's begin, shall we? Immediately Orochimaru's lower jaw welled down and his body began to grow disproportionately, his entirely body bulging out of his cloak and shinobi robes. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped as 2 bulging figures in Orochimaru's neck traveled down and fell out of his gargantuan mouth, coated with slimy, green mucus. 4. 2 corpses laid on the ground between Tsunade and Orochimaru. Both were male, one being considerably taller than the other. It was just then Tsunade's eyes widened at the similarities between the corpses and the appearances of her beloved lost ones. Immediately her mind was flooded with past memories she had unsuccessfully attempted to bury deep down in her subconscious through years of abusing alcohol. Hey! I want to be like Grandpa someday. I will be honored with the name Hokage, because being Hokage is my dream. 5. It is because we are living in the shinobi world, where death is always following us, that I want to put my life on the line to subdue this war-ridden world. I dearly love both the village and my comrades. That is why I want to protect them. 5. The storm inside Tsunade raged with a great unrelenting fury, a force she could no longer pretend to be aware of. From experience, it is best to use sacrifices that resemble those you intend to summon. Orochimaru's explanation died in his throat as he saw the rage in Tsunade's eyes, the incredibly fury with which she looked at him. A bull-like roar escaped Tsunade as she aimed a fist for the ground. Orochimaru,